Управляться из мирового или регионального центра через спутники и повсеместно расставляемые вышки мобильной связи. На эксперименты, благодаря которым весь мир уже в самое ближайшее время планируется брать под тотальный контроль, выделяются миллиарды долларов. Пси-террор – это репрессии и опыты, прежде всего, над моральными и образованными людьми, которые тяжелее всего поддаются криминальному зомбированию и дистанционному подчинению. Честь, благородство и высокая нравственность – главные признаки, по которым реальных и потенциальных борцов за справедливость преследуют, запугивают и пытаются ликвидировать. По всей планете против них, в первую очередь, идет тайная война, как против потенциальных несогласных с грядущими переменами, которые могут мешать глобалистам уничтожать человеческие ценности, христианство, добро и саму человеческую природу. Подготовленно и повсеместно тихо тестируется новая модель цифрового человека, как бесправного, контролируемого и управляемого биологического существа, ограниченного во всех возможных правах и свободах. Люди под пситеррором – это подопытные и тестовые образцы такой модели, либо жертвы психотронного бандитизма, прежде всего в силовых структурах, причастных к подготовке нового мирового порядка. Порядочные, здоровые и думающие люди собираются в каталоги, террористические списки с потенциальными врагами системы, которые идут в разработку или предлагаются западным заказчикам, и потом над ними тайно проводятся нелегальные эксперименты. Также востребованы дети и подростки, как наиболее податливые для психотронных обработок и зомбирования. Кроме того, владея фактически абсолютным оружием, спецслужбы и криминально-милицейские банды устраняют неугодных, отбирают имущество и бизнес, и просто развлекаются, делая ставки на людей. На огромной международной сети секретных агентов основано и банальное бандитское преследование человека, где бы он ни находился. Списки людей-мишеней для репрессий и устранения составляются отделами спецслужб, наследниками тайных полиций по борьбе с неугодными системе, экстремистами, инакомыслящими, активистами, диссидентами и прочее. В этих списках дети, пенсионеры, старики, женщины, творческая интеллигенция, подонкам в погонах нужны показатели работы, премии, роскошная жизнь и все большее финансирование из бюджета страны. В списки могут заноситься даже неугодные или несговорчивые генералы, министры и депутаты. В истории немало прецедентов, когда подконтрольные мировому масонству спецслужбы устраняли даже своих президентов. Программ наиболее известной и нашумевшей стала американская программа МКультра Mind Control Ultra, от которой пострадало тысячи людей. Правительства всегда хотели знать мысли простых граждан, тем более управлять ими. Для этого и разрабатывались изощренные методы дистанционного контроля разума, промывания мозгов, синтетической телепатии, гипноза и стирания памяти. Глобальная цель мировой власти – сокращение населения до 1 миллиарда и тотальный контроль планеты. При этом 99% людей должны стать служебными и роботизированными людьми, обслуживающими касту избранных, а все человечество должно перейти в новую, цифровую эру трансгуманизма, научное название сатанизма. Реализацией этих коварных планов и занимаются спецслужбы, узаконенная мировая мафия, контролирующая все передовые технологии и все население мира через своих агентов и специально засекреченная для совершения тайных и преступных операций, среди которых локальные войны, экономические кризисы, террористические акты, смена режимов, техногенные катастрофы, искусственные эпидемии и прочее. Все спецслужбы управляются масонами и сатанинскими сектами, в которых состоят члены мирового правительства. Под руководством сионистов разрабатываются и воплощаются в жизнь коварные планы психотронного порабощения мира и в первую очередь славян. На христианах, моральных людях и любых неугодных идет тренировка зомбированной армии шпионов, активно применяется психотронное оружие, гипноз и черная магия. Сатанистам нужны в том числе низкочастотные вибрации страха и страданий жертв, а также их покалеченные души. Дистанционное чтение мыслей и в эмоциональных состояний – это секретные технологии, которые спецслужбы отрабатывают и применяют уже десятки лет. В тече на них и строится пси-террор, когда жертвы срывают психику и демонстрируют, что все они знают, считывая все мысли и намерения непосредственно из мозговых центров. Однако жертвы, как подопытные крысы, нужны и для более продвинутых целей и опытов. Все действия и мысли жертв пситеррора мониторятся, считываются и оцифровываются для создания паттернов и шаблонов по воздействию на людей разных типов и социальных групп. Жертв терроризируют, погружают в негатив, пытаются озлобить и подвести к неадекватным действиям или преступлениям. Цель нечеловеческих опытов – оцифровать внутренний переход человека от доброй и спокойной сущности к злой, агрессивной и порочной, чтобы потом проецировать и накладывать созданные прототипы на целые группы людей с помощью торсионных и психотронных технологий. Отсюда в мире уже так много необъяснимых преступлений, в тече совершенных несовершеннолетними. Земля готовится жить по законам сатаны, где добрым и моральным людям не будет места. Для этого под контролем спецслужб и спецотделов полиции, которые также обрабатываются и зомбируются, идет криминализация подростков, пропаганда вседозволенности, секса, наркотиков и прочее. Моральные поколения должны остаться в прошлом. Новая реальность предполагает уход от семейных ценностей, и для этого спецслужбами массово применяются технологии развала семьи и разделения людей. Неугодных всегда легче уничтожать поодиночке. По всему миру повсеместно и тайно людей облучают, и идет волна тотального натравливания зазомбированного и криминального быдла на думающих, интеллигентных и высоконравственных людей, которые могут сопротивляться новому порядку. Методы пситеррора включают в себя вторжение во все сферы жизни, распускание слухов и сплетен и тотальное очернение, главным сатанинским оружием – ложью, постоянные помехи в работе, подрыв здоровья, порча имущества, кража информации, лишение средств к существованию, разрушение личной и семейной жизни, устрашение и подавление воли, полная дискриминация личности. Как уже писалось выше, преследование и тайные опыты проводятся и с целью разработки шаблонов по устранению, изоляции или коррекции индивидуумов из схожих социальных групп. К пситеррору привлекаются большие группы людей, в большинстве своем совершенно случайных, которые, в отличие от организаторов, не знают об истинных целях и масштабах террора против назначенных жертв. Главная задача – медленное уничтожение конкретного человека или групп людей путем ежедневного и планомерного подрыва здоровья, психического через гангсталкинг и физического через облучение. Электромагнитные и торсионные поля, звуковые генераторы и микроволновые излучения – это засекреченные технологии, которые используются спецслужбами и бандами для зачистки общества, экспериментов и отбора материальных благ. Использование психофизического оружия является преступлением, которое до сих пор не прописано в уголовных кодексах, так как против жертв применяются бесконтактные методы террора и устранения, которые крайне сложно отследить и доказать. Основные виды применяемых излучений – ультразвук, инфразвук, электромагнитные волны, лазеры и СВЧ-волны. Все виды воздействия на человека опасны для здоровья, хотя и считаются оружием нелетального действия. Наиболее разрушительное из всех – микроволновое облучение, при котором организм подвергается необратимым изменениям с провоцированием онкологических заболеваний. Все зависит от мощности, частоты и продолжительности сеансов. При большой мощности и узконаправленном микроволновом воздействии на сердце, например, человека можно убить. Таким невидимым оружием спецслужбы тайно и под видом естественных болезней и инфарктов устраняют неконтролируемых политиков и чиновников, неугодных журналистов, активистов, общественных деятелей и ученых. Кроме заказных убийств и отбора имущества, одним из бизнесов сионистских банд является ежедневное тайное облучение избранных богатых жертв, бизнесменов, публичных людей с доведением до онкологии и поставкой клиентов дорогим еврейским онкологическим клиникам. Уничтожаются лучшие люди и активные борцы с несправедливостью и властным режимом. Юморист Михаил Задорнов, ученый Николай Левашов, Рауни Кильды и другие не менее известные личности спецслужбы, главные проводники идей масонов и мирового правительства, прикрываясь идеями борьбы с терроризмом и национальной безопасности. Во всем мире массово проводят секретные операции по волновому воздействию со всеми слоями общества, от бомжей до членов правительств. Глобальная цель – мировое господство избранных, золотой миллиард и бесшумное уничтожение огромных масс людей. Человеческий мозг можно сравнить с принимающим и передающим радиоприемником. Если передавать в мозг закодированные управляющие сигналы, то он будет продуцировать определенную мышечную или мозговую активность. Кроме того, все органы человеческого организма также имеют свои частоты, которые можно искусственно сбивать и подавлять, влияя на физическое и психическое здоровье. Эмоциональными состояниями также можно управлять дистанционно. Спецслужбы и военные ведомства имеют и тайно применяют на людях излучающее оборудование, которое, в зависимости от выбранных модулированных частот, направляемых на человека, вызывает страх, панику, приливы нежности, отчаяние, гнев, галлюцинации. Можно вызывать простуду, головные или сердечные боли, колики, чихание, вздутие, боли различных органов. Стимулируя радиоволнами определенные участки мозга, можно также повышать температуру тела, вызывать насморк, спазмы, позывы в туалет, сексуальное возбуждение, голод. Но самое главное, можно понижать естественные частоты тела до уровня, когда человек заболевает раком или умирает. Психотронным воздействием можно любого здорового сделать больным, уравновешенного, психом, смелого, трусом, доброго, злым и агрессивным. Всем этим тайным арсеналом и развлекается психотронная мафия во всем мире, преследуя людей для медицинских опытов и пыток. Когда человек радуется и счастлив, он излучает высокие частоты. Задача мировой сатанинской власти – понижать частоты людей до самых низких, частот страха, тревоги, болезней и смертей, а также зомбировать население планеты. Все это и планируется делать в самое ближайшее время с помощью вышек, мобильной связи и технологии 5G. Для отработок убирания неугодных в системе и потенциальных лидеров, а также для усиления эффективности облучения подопытных жертв, был изобретен гангсталкинг, групповое преследование и травля, изощренный срыв нервной системы, очернение и полная изоляция от общества. Ежедневным моральным террором человека заводят в хронический стресс для ослабления иммунитета и сопротивляемости облучению и зомбированию, а также для провоцирования психических болезней. Срыв психики предполагает помещение в психиатрическую клинику для дальнейшего подрыва уже физического здоровья и испытаний на жертве новых болезней и психотропных препаратов, токсинов, тяжелых металлов, радионуклидов, наркотиков и прочее. Эксперименты с организмом приводят к тому, что человек становится безвольной мясной куклой, с которой делают все, что угодно, после чего как отработанный материал тихо убирают, закалывая до смерти уколами. Если какую-либо назначенную жертву поместить в психиатрическую клинику не удается, то за ней приходится бегать агентам и гангсталкерам, травить газами и облучать на ходу в тече из вызываемых облучательных машин. Параллельно с этим может идти скрытый мониторинг состояния здоровья через биополе. Всем жертвам и подопытным, которых терроризируют и на которых проводят опыты по зомбированию, никто не должен верить и помогать, их должны считать сумасшедшими. Мировому правительству нужны новые, тихие и эффективные методы кардинального сокращения населения и устранения думающих и опасных до режима индивидуумов, и гангсталкинг является частью современной карательной психиатрии. С целью сокращения людей без их прямого уничтожения, что крайне сложно сделать сразу с 7 миллиардами людей, была разработана технология 5G, в задачи которой входит облучение людей для их стерилизации в следующих поколениях. Живущие в настоящее время поколения людей вымрут, а новые рождаться уже просто не должны. Для этого и распыляются химтрейлы, добавляются ГМОВ-продукты и облучаются люди из вышек мобильной связи. 5G имеет огромную пропускную способность и будет тихо убивать своим электромагнитным полем и направленными частотами, в тече для считывания информации с людей и управления их состояниями. Но главная цель – стерилизация через смертоносное воздействие на ДНК, отвечающие за воспроизведение потомства. Масс-медиа, принадлежащие еврейским олигархам, тщательно скрывают тему пситеррора от общества, полиции запрещено заниматься делами, связанными с пситеррором и преследованиями. Идет тотальное запугивание. Тех, кто ослушивается, также ставят на компьютер и начинают преследовать, либо быстро и безжалостно уничтожают. Тактика организаторов психотронного концлагеря – разделять, очернять, стравливать и убивать. Это стандартные методы борьбы сионистов и еврейских шовинистов. С помощью жидомасонских приемов подкупа, влияния и введения в зависимость высокопоставленных лиц различных уровней, вплоть до самых высоких, власть переходит к купленным, продажным и послушным чиновникам и начальникам, которые за щедрые подарки проводят в жизнь планы психотронных палачей или прикрывают их преступления, по наивности полагая, что их очередь никогда не придет. Идеологи и стратеги нового мирового порядка воплощают в жизнь доктрину психотронной войны, при которой люди уничтожаются тайно и поодиночке, под видом естественных смертей, а любые протесты и паника в обществе должны моментально пресекаться. Такими изощренными методами и волновым воздействием планируется расчищать планету от лишних людей, и процесс уже пошел. Изначально устраняются люди аналитического склада ума, моральные и духовные, как главное препятствие для реализации сатанинских планов психотронной мафии. Как правило, многие годы жертвы даже не подозревают о вмешательстве в свою жизнь и в свой организм, списывая все на случайности и естественные болезни. Недалекие и малообразованные люди не верят в пси-террор и облучение, и даже не допускают мысли, что кто-то их может тайно калечить и облучать. Такие люди болеют и умирают, у них диагностируют страшные заболевания, внезапно разрушаются семьи, возникают непонятные проблемы на работе и в общении с людьми, но они как зомби даже не хотят слушать об искусственном происхождении своих проблем. Особенно пенсионеры наивно думают, что они нужны системе и свято верят в то, что система мечтает платить им пенсии до 100 лет. Такая часть населения зомбирована телевизором и идеологами от спецслужб, которые контролируют всю государственную пропаганду. Пси-террор организован мировым сионизмом, в учениях которого прямо указана цель еврейского народа – мировое господство и причинение страданий гоям, неевреям. По законам иудейского Талмуда, иудеям дозволено убивать гоев, издеваться над ними и отбирать их имущество. Все это не афишируется и даже скрывается, чтобы люди не вникали в причины многих зол и бед на земле. Мировой пси-террор является жертвоприношением иудейскому богу перед началом установления нового мирового порядка, который уже несколько десятилетий готовят миру сионисты и масоны мирового правительства. Помимо облучения, на Ангаях испытывают техники еврейской черной магии Каббалы, такие как управление с помощью злой энергии, подчинение взглядам, проклятие, порча, отъем энергии и прочее. Согласно древним иудейским учениям, иудеи должны закаббалить мир, а христианство должно быть уничтожено. Еще одной задачей сионизма является разложение морали и вырождение белой расы и особенно духовного славянства. Пси-террор – это гремучая смесь психотронных технологий и черной магии, с помощью которой зомбируют как жертв, так и исполнителей. Все это зло против гоев тайно применяет по всему миру иудейская мафия, Хаббат, Моссад, проникшая во все властные и силовые структуры большинства стран. Цель пси-террора – изучить, оцифровать и уничтожить душу как божественную основу человека. Жители Земли хотят обездушить и роботизировать. Поэтому страдает так много светлых, добрых и способных на большие душевные порывы людей. Именно на них бездуховные иудеи пытаются разгадать формулу духовности, воли и совести. После длительного пси-террора души таких людей буквально опустошаются, они перестают радоваться жизни, не могут испытывать настоящие эмоции, творить и чувствовать полноту жизни. Это иудейские демоны делают светлым людям адские муки на земле и лишают их свободы, любви и счастья. То же самое будет делаться и со всеми. Душа – это тоже вибрации и частоты. С помощью волнового вторжения и через 5G у людей будут подавлять эти частоты и буквально выжигать души. Поэтому спасение обязательно следует искать также в Боге и в православной церкви. Однако мир уже осознал угрозу. В интернете ежедневно появляются данные о все новых и новых преступлениях во всех странах и на всех континентах. Жертв пси-террора уже миллионы. Со спутников и специальных центров управления мозги людей взламываются как компьютер, чтобы читать мысли и навязывать подавленные состояния, а к зрительным центрам людей-мишеней подключаются датчики, чтобы видеть их глазами. И все это не фантастика, а десятилетиями скрываемые от мира военные технологии, которые подло испытываются на людях без их согласия и ведома. Людей калечат, зомбируют и уничтожают. По всему миру проходят митинги и протесты против нечеловеческих опытов и электронных репрессий. Прогрессивная общественность требует от правительств принять законы, запрещающие нейрооружие, вторжение в человеческий мозг и психотронный фашизм. Понимая, что мировое сообщество с каждым днем все больше узнает жестокую правду о невиданных преступлениях против человечества, опасаясь паники, народного гнева и противостояния, мировой сионизм в лице спецслужб в последнее время начал активно опровергать все факты существования психотронного оружия и его применения против граждан. Для этого на сайтах, подконтрольных евреям, начали массово появляться материалы, где миллионы жертв пси-террора причисляются к душевнобольным, а информация подается в искаженном и нарочито ироничном стиле. Кроме того, создаются подставные жертвы, которые должны своими рассказами дезориентировать людей и нивелировать проблему облучений. Википедия, как тяжелая артиллерия спецслужб, которой все должны безоговорочно верить, также подает пси-террор как теорию заговора и отрицает существование психотронного, волнового, торсионного оружия, несмотря на то, что оно уже более 100 лет тайно разрабатывается и активно применяется ведущими странами мира. Тысячи интервью жертв пси-террора на канале YouTube, а также сайтов по всему миру с описанием фашистских электронных пыток и убийств во всех странах, огромное количество видео и фактов из истории психотронных разработок и тайных экспериментов на людях, но по замыслу спецслужб жители планеты не должны знать о самом страшном оружии в истории человечества, так же, как и не догадываться о причинах своих болезней и о готовящемся кардинальном сокращении населения Земли. Психотронное оружие – самый большой секрет мирового правительства, дающее полный и тотальный контроль над каждым человеком, его телом и разумом. Смертельная опасность электромагнитного оружия и технологии 5G также тщательно скрываются, люди не должны знать, какой ад им готовят сатанисты. О проблеме волнового облучения и пситеррора не рассказывают в новостях, так как никто не должен знать о волшебном оружии, страшных методах зомбирования, облучения и криминализации общества. И, тем более, никто не должен знать о тайном заговоре против человечества со стороны мирового сионизма. Задача этого сайта – доносить людям правду. Копируйте и распространяйте информацию. Чем больше людей будет знать о происходящем, тем быстрее можно будет заставить власть остановить эти преступления. Расскажите о том, что вам известно. Если вы стали жертвой пси-террора, сообщите об этом миру, укажите организаторов и исполнителей. Надвигающееся зло можно победить только сообща. Люди должны знать, что их ждет, и обязаны отстоять свое право на жизнь. Спасение в объединении и принятии совместных мер. В первую очередь, нужны законы о жестком запрещении иудейского экстремизма, волнового и психотронного оружия, а также их жесткое соблюдение. Берегите себя. Пси-террор – это новая форма геноцида и жестокая реальность сегодняшней жизни. Пси-террором занимаются спецслужбы совместно со спецотделами полиции и криминалитетом по нелегальным и незаконным программам внесудебных преследований. Основной целью являются репрессии и тайное устранение неугодных системе. Среди других целей – военно-медицинские эксперименты, отбор имущества, месть и даже развлечения. На людях тайно и без их согласия испытывают новейшие технологии волнового воздействия на организм, с помощью которых можно вызывать болезни, любые эмоциональные состояния и даже управлять поведением. Государственные организованные структуры оснащены всем необходимым для тотального контроля и проведения опытов над любым человеком, а круговая порука и интеграция правоохранительных органов с уголовным миром позволяют организаторам пси-террора безнаказанно истязать и уничтожать лучших людей общества. Пси-террор проводится по всему миру правительственными сионистскими кланами согласно стратегии тайного сокращения населения и установления на планете нового и единого мирового порядка электронного концлагеря. И лишь немногие, очень немногие будут догадываться или понимать, что происходит. Но таких людей мы поставим в беспомощное положение, превратим в посмешище. Найдем способ их оболгать и объявить отбросами общества. Бывший директор ЦРУ, еврей Ален Даллас. Пси-террор – это и есть один из пунктов реализации протоколов сионских мудрецов и зловещего плана Алена Далласа. COVID-19 – это в ТЭЧ результат воздействия электромагнитной радиации с вышек 5G, которые начали включать по всему миру и экспериментировать с мощностью излучений, разрушая людям иммунную систему. Тестовые облучения и спецтехники много лет проводились на жертвах пси-террора во всех странах. Сейчас пришла очередь облучать все человечество. Вакцины с наночипами уже ждут землян. Не давайте себя обманывать и чипировать. Пока еврейские СМИ запугивают и обманывают мир, сионисты у власти принимают законы новой формы существования общества – цифрового концлагеря. Реализуется модель тотального контроля, которая уже практически реализована в Китае, с технологией слежки, распознавания лиц и зомбирования людей. Другие нововведения. Разрешение на продажу органов как новая статья пополнения бюджета уже реализовано в Китае и Казахстане. Контроль передвижений и личных отношений, социальный рейтинг, замена обслуживающего персонала программами и роботами и полное управление страной и людьми искусственным интеллектом. Под предлогом спасения климата планеты от выдыхаемого людьми углекислого газа, мировой Кагал решил оптимизировать население Земли и с помощью сетей 5G взять под контроль втечи-ментальный все оставшееся после вакциночипирования человечества. Все, что описано на этом сайте, много лет тайно проводилось десятками тысяч людей по всему миру, как испытание и подготовка к лжепандемии и установлению нового миропорядка. Планетарный карантин преследует все те же цели, что и персональный пси-террор, домашний арест, отбор жизненной энергии, погружение в хроническую депрессию, тревогу и страх, финансовое банкротство, социальная депривация и доведение до психических расстройств. Войны с физическим истреблением уходят в прошлое, и теперь под прицелом сатанистов мозг и психика человека. Коронавирус – это и есть пси-террор в мировом масштабе. Все ситуации и поведенческие реакции людей на жесткие ограничения прав и свобод были многократно проверены и отработаны, так же, как и облучение всеми видами опасных волн различных степеней тяжести перед тотальным запуском смертоносной технологии 5G. Как работает пси-террор? Пси-террор – это непрекращающийся психологический и психотронный террор, основанный на постоянной тайной слежке и применении против целевых лиц, таргетед индивидуал, черных приемов угнетения личности, психотронных и психотропных средств. Пси-террор разработали идеологи и стратеги от масонов для возможности изменения человеческих качеств, роботизации человека, изменения сознания, памяти, мышления, ценностей, эмоциональной и духовной сферы, вторжения в личную и интимную жизнь и для полного подчинения через зомбирование, устрашение, гипноз и волновое воздействие. На репрессируемых испытывается психотронное и поведенческое оружие. Глобальная цель – создание дистанционно управляемых служебных людей-зомби и уничтожение неугодных и лишних групп людей и даже наций. Пси-террор является новой формой зачистки населения и составной частью мировых экспериментов, организованных ЦРУ и спецслужбами большинства стран мира. По задумке мировой сионистской власти, уже в самое ближайшее время все люди должны контролироваться и управляться со спутников и вышек мобильной связи. Полная информация о каждом человеке, дистанционно сканируемая и передаваемая посредством встроенных имплантов и наночипов, должна храниться в глобальной базе данных, а обработке и записи должно подлежать абсолютно все – действия, разговоры, передвижения, мысли, планы и даже мечты. Для этого во всех странах массово вводятся электронные паспорта, а также тайно чипируются дети прямо в роддомах при рождении. Технологии Mind Control – контроль сознания – разрабатываются учеными под руководством секретных служб и военных уже более 100 лет и закрыты от мира грифом строгой секретности. С прорывом компьютерных и нанотехнологий реализация проекта по мировому контролю разума начала ускоренно форсироваться, военные ведомства и спецслужбы в сотрудничестве с сотнями университетов и научных центров проводят секретные опыты над сотнями тысяч людей по всему миру по дистанционному воздействию и незаконному вторжению в их мозг. Целевых лиц преследуют, пытают и калечат для усовершенствования и тестирования программ по искусственному интеллекту, трансгуманизму и социальной инженерии, а также для испытания новых разновидностей психотронного оружия и психотропных средств. Ведутся последние приготовления для массового подключения людей к мировому компьютеру, где, как в интернете вещей, каждый человек, а фактически уже биоробот, будет управляться из мирового или регионального центра через спутники и повсеместно расставляемые вышки мобильной связи. На эксперименты, благодаря которым весь мир уже в самое ближайшее время планируется брать под тотальный контроль, выделяются миллиарды долларов. Пси-террор – это репрессии и опыты, прежде всего, над моральными и образованными людьми, которые тяжелее всего поддаются криминальному зомбированию и дистанционному подчинению. Честь, благородство и высокая нравственность – главные признаки, по которым реальных и потенциальных борцов за справедливость преследуют, запугивают и пытаются ликвидировать. По всей планете против них, в первую очередь, идет тайная война, как против потенциальных несогласных с грядущими переменами, которые могут мешать глобалистам уничтожать человеческие ценности, христианство, добро и саму человеческую природу. Подготовленно и повсеместно тихо тестируется новая модель цифрового человека, как бесправного, контролируемого и управляемого биологического существа, ограниченного во всех возможных правах и свободах. Люди под пситеррором – это подопытные и тестовые образцы такой модели, либо жертвы психотронного бандитизма, прежде всего в силовых структурах, причастных к подготовке нового мирового порядка. Порядочные, здоровые и думающие люди собираются в каталоги, террористические списки с потенциальными врагами системы, которые идут в разработку или предлагаются западным заказчикам, и потом над ними тайно проводятся нелегальные эксперименты. Также востребованы дети и подростки, как наиболее податливые для психотронных обработок и зомбирования. Кроме того, владея фактически абсолютным оружием, спецслужбы и криминально-милицейские банды устраняют неугодных, отбирают имущество и бизнес, и просто развлекаются, делая ставки на людей. На огромной международной сети секретных агентов основано и банальное бандитское преследование человека, где бы он ни находился. Списки людей-мишеней для репрессий и устранения составляются отделами спецслужб, наследниками тайных полиций по борьбе с неугодными системе, экстремистами, инакомыслящими, активистами, диссидентами и прочее. В этих списках дети, пенсионеры, старики, женщины, творческая интеллигенция, подонкам в погонах нужны показатели работы, премии, роскошная жизнь и все большее финансирование из бюджета страны. В списки могут заноситься даже неугодные или несговорчивые генералы, министры и депутаты. В истории немало прецедентов, когда подконтрольные мировому масонству спецслужбы устраняли даже своих президентов. Программ наиболее известной и нашумевшей стала американская программа МК-УЛТРА Mind Control Ultra, от которой пострадало тысячи людей. Правительства всегда хотели знать мысли простых граждан, тем более управлять ими. Для этого и разрабатывались изощренные методы дистанционного контроля разума, промывания мозгов, синтетической телепатии, гипноза и стирания памяти. Глобальная цель мировой власти – сокращение населения до 1 миллиарда и тотальный контроль планеты. При этом 99% людей должны стать служебными и роботизированными людьми, обслуживающими касту избранных, а все человечество должно перейти в новую, цифровую эру трансгуманизма, научное название сатанизма. Реализацией этих коварных планов и занимаются спецслужбы, узаконенная мировая мафия, контролирующая все передовые технологии и все население мира через своих агентов и специально засекреченная для совершения тайных и преступных операций, среди которых локальные войны, экономические кризисы, террористические акты, смена режимов, техногенные катастрофы, искусственные эпидемии и прочее. Все спецслужбы управляются масонами и сатанинскими сектами, в которых состоят члены мирового правительства. Под руководством сионистов разрабатываются и воплощаются в жизнь коварные планы психотронного порабощения мира и в первую очередь славян. На христианах, моральных людях и любых неугодных идет тренировка зомбированной армии шпионов, активно применяется психотронное оружие, гипноз и черная магия. Сатанистам нужны в том числе низкочастотные вибрации страха и страданий жертв, а также их покалеченные души. Дистанционное чтение мыслей и в эмоциональных состояний – это секретные технологии, которые спецслужбы отрабатывают и применяют уже десятки лет. В тече на них и строится пситеррор, когда жертвы срывают психику и демонстрируют, что все они знают, считывая все мысли и намерения непосредственно из мозговых центров. Однако жертвы, как подопытные крысы, нужны и для более продвинутых целей и опытов. Все действия и мысли жертв пситеррора мониторятся, считываются и оцифровываются для создания паттернов и шаблонов по воздействию на людей разных типов и социальных групп. Жертв терроризируют, погружают в негатив, пытаются озлобить и подвести к неадекватным действиям или преступлениям. Цель нечеловеческих опытов – оцифровать внутренний переход человека от доброй и спокойной сущности к злой, агрессивной и порочной, чтобы потом проецировать и накладывать созданные прототипы на целые группы людей с помощью торсионных и психотронных технологий. Отсюда в мире уже так много необъяснимых преступлений, в тече совершенных несовершеннолетними. Земля готовится жить по законам сатаны, где добрым и моральным людям не будет места. Для этого под контролем спецслужб и спецотделов полиции, которые также обрабатываются и зомбируются, идет криминализация подростков, пропаганда вседозволенности, секса, наркотиков и прочее. Моральные поколения должны остаться в прошлом. Новая реальность предполагает уход от семейных ценностей, и для этого спецслужбами массово применяются технологии развала семьи и разделения людей. Неугодных всегда легче уничтожать поодиночке. По всему миру повсеместно и тайно людей облучают, и идет волна тотального натравливания зазомбированного и криминального быдла на думающих, интеллигентных и высоконравственных людей, которые могут сопротивляться новому порядку. Методы пситеррора включают в себя вторжение во все сферы жизни, распускание слухов и сплетен и тотальное очернение, главным сатанинским оружием – ложью, постоянные помехи в работе, подрыв здоровья, порча имущества, кража информации, лишение средств к существованию, разрушение личной и семейной жизни, устрашение и подавление воли. Полная дискриминация личности. Как уже писалось выше, преследование и тайные опыты проводятся и с целью разработки шаблонов по устранению, изоляции или коррекции индивидуумов из схожих социальных групп. К пситеррору привлекаются большие группы людей, в большинстве своем совершенно случайных, которые, в отличие от организаторов, не знают об истинных целях и масштабах террора против назначенных жертв. Главная задача – медленное уничтожение конкретного человека или групп людей путем ежедневного и планомерного подрыва здоровья, психического через гангсталкинг и физического через облучение. Электромагнитные и торсионные поля, звуковые генераторы и микроволновые излучения – это засекреченные технологии, которые используются спецслужбами и бандами для зачистки общества, экспериментов и отбора материальных благ. Использование психофизического оружия является преступлением, которое до сих пор не прописано в уголовных кодексах, так как против жертв применяются бесконтактные методы террора и устранения, которые крайне сложно отследить и доказать. Основные виды применяемых излучений – ультразвук, инфразвук, электромагнитные волны, лазеры и СВЧ-волны. Все виды воздействия на человека опасны для здоровья, хотя и считаются оружием нелетального действия. Наиболее разрушительное из всех – микроволновое облучение, при котором организм подвергается необратимым изменениям с провоцированием онкологических заболеваний. Все зависит от мощности, частоты и продолжительности сеансов. При большой мощности и узконаправленном микроволновом воздействии на сердце, например, человека можно убить. Таким невидимым оружием спецслужбы тайно и под видом естественных болезней и инфарктов устраняют неконтролируемых политиков и чиновников, неугодных журналистов, активистов, общественных деятелей и ученых. Кроме заказных убийств и отбора имущества, одним из бизнесов сионистских банд является ежедневное тайное облучение избранных богатых жертв, бизнесменов, публичных людей с доведением до онкологии и поставкой клиентов дорогим еврейским онкологическим клиникам. Уничтожаются лучшие люди и активные борцы с несправедливостью и властным режимом. Юморист Михаил Задорнов, ученый Николай Левашов, Рауни Кильды и другие не менее известные личности спецслужбы, главные проводники идей масонов и мирового правительства, прикрываясь идеями борьбы с терроризмом и национальной безопасности. Во всем мире массово проводят секретные операции по волновому воздействию со всеми слоями общества, от бомжей до членов правительств. Глобальная цель – мировое господство избранных, золотой миллиард и бесшумное уничтожение огромных масс людей. Человеческий мозг можно сравнить с принимающим и передающим радиоприемником. Если передавать в мозг закодированные управляющие сигналы, то он будет продуцировать определенную мышечную или мозговую активность. Кроме того, все органы человеческого организма также имеют свои частоты, которые можно искусственно сбивать и подавлять, влияя на физическое и психическое здоровье. Эмоциональными состояниями также можно управлять дистанционно. Спецслужбы и военные ведомства имеют и тайно применяют на людях излучающее оборудование, которое, в зависимости от выбранных модулированных частот, направляемых на человека, вызывает страх, панику, приливы нежности, отчаяние, гнев, галлюцинации. Можно вызывать простуду, головные или сердечные боли, колики, чихание, вздутие, боли различных органов. Стимулируя радиоволнами определенные участки мозга, можно также повышать температуру тела, вызывать насморк, спазмы, позывы в туалет, сексуальное возбуждение, голод. Но самое главное, можно понижать естественные частоты тела до уровня, когда человек заболевает раком или умирает. Психотронным воздействием можно любого здорового сделать больным, уравновешенного, психом, смелого, трусом, доброго, злым и агрессивным. Всем этим тайным арсеналом и развлекается психотронная мафия во всем мире, преследуя людей для медицинских опытов и пыток. Когда человек радуется и счастлив, он излучает высокие частоты. Задача мировой сатанинской власти – понижать частоты людей до самых низких, частот страха, тревоги, болезней и смертей, а также зомбировать население планеты. Все это и планируется делать в самое ближайшее время с помощью вышек, мобильной связи и технологии 5G. Для отработок убирания неугодных системе и потенциальных лидеров, а также для усиления эффективности облучения подопытных жертв, был изобретен гангсталкинг, групповое преследование и травля, изощренный срыв нервной системы, очернение и полная изоляция от общества. Ежедневным моральным террором человека заводит хронический стресс для ослабления иммунитета и сопротивляемости облучению и зомбированию, а также для провоцирования психических болезней. Срыв психики предполагает помещение в психиатрическую клинику для дальнейшего подрыва уже физического здоровья и испытания на жертве новых болезней и психотропных препаратов, токсинов, тяжелых металлов, радионуклидов, наркотиков и прочее. Эксперименты с организмом приводят к тому, что человек становится безвольной мясной куклой, с которой делают все, что угодно, после чего как отработанный материал тихо убирают, закалывая до смерти уколами. Если какую-либо назначенную жертву поместить в психиатрическую клинику не удается, то за ней приходится бегать агентам и гангсталкерам, травить газами и облучать на ходу в тече из вызываемых облучательных машин. Параллельно с этим может идти скрытый мониторинг состояния здоровья через биополе. Всем жертвам и подопытным, которых терроризируют и на которых проводят опыты по зомбированию, никто не должен верить и помогать, их должны считать сумасшедшими. Мировому правительству нужны новые, тихие и эффективные методы кардинального сокращения населения и устранения думающих и опасных для режима индивидуумов, и гангсталкинг является частью современной карательной психиатрии. С целью сокращения людей без их прямого уничтожения, что крайне сложно сделать сразу с 7 миллиардами людей, была разработана технология 5G, в задачи которой входит облучение людей для их стерилизации в следующих поколениях. Живущие в настоящее время поколения людей вымрут, а новые рождаться уже просто не должны. Для этого и распыляются химтрейлы, добавляются ГМОВ-продукты и облучаются люди из вышек мобильной связи. 5G имеет огромную пропускную способность и будет тихо убивать своим электромагнитным полем и направленными частотами, в тече для считывания информации с людей и управления их состояниями. Но главная цель – стерилизация через смертоносное воздействие на ДНК, отвечающее за воспроизведение потомства. Масс-медиа, принадлежащие еврейским олигархам, тщательно скрывают тему пситеррора от общества, полиции запрещено заниматься делами, связанными с пситеррором и преследованиями. Идет тотальное запугивание. Тех, кто ослушивается, также ставят на компьютер и начинают преследовать, либо быстро и безжалостно уничтожают. Тактика организаторов психотронного концлагеря – разделять, очернять, стравливать и убивать. Это стандартные методы борьбы сионистов и еврейских шовинистов. С помощью же домасонских приемов подкупа, влияния и введения в зависимость высокопоставленных лиц различных уровней, вплоть до самых высоких, власть переходит к купленным, продажным и послушным чиновникам и начальникам, которые за щедрые подарки проводят в жизнь планы психотронных палачей или прикрывают их преступления, по наивности полагая, что их очередь никогда не придет. Идеологи и стратеги нового мирового порядка воплощают в жизнь доктрину психотронной войны, при которой люди уничтожаются тайно и поодиночке, под видом естественных смертей, а любые протесты и паника в обществе должны моментально пресекаться. Такими изощренными методами и волновым воздействием планируется расчищать планету от лишних людей, и процесс уже пошел. Изначально устраняются люди аналитического склада ума, моральные и духовные, как главное препятствие для реализации сатанинских планов психотронной мафии. Как правило, многие годы жертвы даже не подозревают о вмешательстве в свою жизнь и в свой организм, списывая все на случайности и естественные болезни. Недалекие и малообразованные люди не верят в пситеррор и облучение, и даже не допускают мысли, что кто-то их может тайно калечить и облучать. Такие люди болеют и умирают, у них диагностируют страшные заболевания, внезапно разрушаются семьи, возникают непонятные проблемы на работе и в общении с людьми, но они как зомби даже не хотят слушать об искусственном происхождении своих проблем. Особенно пенсионеры наивно думают, что они нужны системе и свято верят в то, что система мечтает платить им пенсии до 100 лет. Такая часть населения зомбирована телевизором и идеологами от спецслужб, которые контролируют всю государственную пропаганду. Пси-террор организован мировым сионизмом, в учениях которого прямо указана цель еврейского народа – мировое господство и причинение страданий гоям, неевреям. По законам иудейского Талмуда, иудеям дозволено убивать гоев, издеваться над ними и отбирать их имущество. Все это не афишируется и даже скрывается, чтобы люди не вникали в причины многих зол и бед на земле. Мировой пси-террор является жертвоприношением иудейскому богу перед началом установления нового мирового порядка, который уже несколько десятилетий готовят миру сионисты и масоны мирового правительства. Помимо облучения, на гаях испытывают техники еврейской черной магии каббалы, такие как управление с помощью злой энергии, подчинение взглядам, проклятие, порча, отъем энергии и прочее. Согласно древним иудейским учениям, иудеи должны закабалить мир, а христианство должно быть уничтожено. Еще одной задачей сионизма является разложение морали и вырождение белой расы и особенно духовного славянства. Пси-террор – это гремучая смесь психотронных технологий и черной магии, с помощью которой зомбируют как жертв, так и исполнителей. Все это зло против гоев тайно применяет по всему миру иудейская мафия, Хаббат, Моссад, проникшая во все властные и силовые структуры большинства стран. Цель пси-террора – изучить, оцифровать и уничтожить душу как божественную основу человека. Жители Земли хотят обездушить и роботизировать. Поэтому страдает так много светлых, добрых и способных на большие душевные порывы людей. Именно на них бездуховные иудеи пытаются разгадать формулу духовности, воли и совести. После длительного пси-террора души таких людей буквально опустошаются, они перестают радоваться жизни, не могут испытывать настоящие эмоции, творить и чувствовать полноту жизни. Это иудейские демоны делают светлым людям адские муки на земле и лишают их свободы, любви и счастья. То же самое будет делаться и со всеми. Душа – это тоже вибрации и частоты. С помощью волнового вторжения и через 5G у людей будут подавлять эти частоты и...
Hi, my name is Lightworker, and I guess I should start with if you like this video, please follow me on FB and YT and Insta and all that. I'm just starting to expose the darkness and create a platform for the light in a sense. And I stand for, righteousness and truth. And I also am a chosen one. I'm a targeted individual for over 10 years. And I've learned a lot through that. I've grown a lot. But today, in this video, I thought, my first video was an introductory. In my second video, I thought, most people would wait 10 videos before they give you the answer. And most targeted individuals have been searching for so long. I thought that was unfair because I wish someone gave me this knowledge when I was being targeted straight away. If I could gain this knowledge and implement it through wisdom, which is knowledge that is being used in the physical form. Wisdom is knowledge you act on. Okay? So this knowledge that I hope you turn into wisdom, I wish someone gave it to me, in my first fucking week of being gang stalked and being targeted. Now, I jump straight in. I don't want to, fuck around. I want to give you the answer to that because it's important. And hopefully you'll take this knowledge, implement it in your life, do whatever it takes to build a routine daily that truly implements these tools. And I hope this helps because that's my only intention. Okay, so the first thing about being gang stalked is you must understand that I don't care if you're not spiritual, everything is spiritual. Okay? And even if you don't see it as spiritual, this world is a simulation. It is a matrix. Okay? Everything is just energy in a physical, dense form. Okay? Now, I don't want to overcomplicate the situation. I just want to drum that in. Everything is spiritual. Let's put it this way. To make it more simple, everything is electricity. Electricity is energy. Okay? Now, energy from a spiritual level is ether. Electricity from a scientific level is electricity. They're still energy. Okay? They're the same thing. Okay, so I guess I'll try and dumb this down in two ways for you. Everything is spiritual and everything is mental. Okay, I'll take it from I'll take to the best of my ability. I'm just winging it here. I know what I've done to make the gang stalking stop. So I'm going to explain it on two levels. I'm going to explain it on a spiritual level, then I'm going to explain it on a psychological level. So the people that aren't yet spiritual or don't want to be spiritual can understand it from a mental level. So I can help as many people as possible. So everything is spiritual or everything is psychological. Okay? Yeah? The first thing I would suggest you do is you must, no matter how hard it is, create boundaries within yourself. See, discipline is self-respect in action. You must be disciplined and willing, and I don't mean just willing, but I mean you must completely cut out. See, most of it isn't what we're doing that's wrong. It's not everything around us that's going on that's the issue. Okay? It's what we're allowing to go on because of our psyche or because of that's on a psychological level, on a spiritual level, because of the energies we're allowing in our energy. So the biggest thing to do with having the gang stalking stop is to cut shit out of your life that no longer serves your highest purpose. Now, the first thing I would suggest is all the people that you have in your life that you can't trust. And even if you do trust them and things, because whether we're spiritual or whether we're psychological, we can read energy on a spiritual level. If you want to go from a psychological level, I'll dumb it down a little bit for you. Everything is visible to the facial expression. Micro fucking emotional tics. Micro expressions. Body language. Read that shit way more than reading people's words. Okay? That will give you a good understanding. Read a room. The energy in a room. Or the people's physical nature's expressions in a room. Okay? Now, I would love to make this just spiritual, but I want to help as many people as possible, so I have to do it on both levels. Okay? For me, I found it much easier to, when I finally surrendered to the fact that the spiritual realm is the first realm where energy comes from, and we're in another realm that's not the first realm, so everything that happens in the first realm happens way before it happens in the physical realm. The first realm, the spiritual realm, shit happens before it happens in the physical realm. Okay? That's my understanding. And what I can say from a psychological perspective is what happens in your mind happens way before it happens in the world around you. And what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, you must cut shit out of your life that doesn't serve your highest purpose. People, places, things, and emotional states of being, mental patterns of thought, physical patterns of behavior. All those things that no longer serve your highest purpose, you must cut out. If you've got a friend that's a fuckwit, fuck them off. If you've got a drug addiction, fuck it off. If you've got a sex addiction, fuck that shit off. You know what I'm saying? These things, if you hang around trap spots because you're using drugs, fuck it off. Okay? These things really, really affect your frequency. And what I mean is your thought, okay, on a spiritual level, your frequency is your emotional state of energy. On a psychological level, it is your thought process that creates your emotions. Okay? Now, it's the same thing, it's just two different perspectives of it. Okay? So I'm trying to get as many people to understand this as possible, because everyone that is being targeted, everyone that is being gang stalked deserves this gift of knowledge. It took me 10 fucking years to figure this shit out. And I spent a long time in fear, a long time in resentment, a long time in self-loathing, a long time as a drug addict, a long time as homeless, a long time being gang stalked, a long time being targeted, a long time thinking I was crazy when I wasn't, a long time being gaslit by a whole society. And now I stand in my truth because I know. I have an inner knowing. I understand, understand, and overstand how I have stopped myself from being gang stalked. I tried everything. I went to war with an international sex cult on a fucking military level, Steves. And I was just a homeless drug addict at the time. Watching Black Ops helicopters go over my head and float above me and then stop, and rotate and shit like that, multiple times. And fucking, I've seen shit you wouldn't believe, but it's all true. It's all true. And you don't have to believe it. This isn't. I just realized something. If you don't believe it, scroll the fuck on. This isn't for you. I'm trying to help people that have been in this situation. I'm not trying to please the masses. For me, this isn't about entertainment. This is about education. Okay? Now, so the first thing is cut all the shit out of your life that no longer serves your highest purpose. Now the second thing, and what I would suggest, the way to do it, I did it, is cut one thing out at a time, because the second thing has to be implemented pretty quickly after you cut that thing out. And the second thing is you must replace it with something that's positive. Okay? And I don't mean you think it's positive, you must know it's positive. So you must look into something, say it's a person, that you cut out of your life, a whole group of people. You know what I replaced with a whole group of people? All my friendship circle that I cut out? I replaced it with sobriety. I replaced it with self-love. Okay? That's what I replaced it with. And I used everything in my, everything at hand. I don't like the word disposal, that's a fucked up word. Everything at my hands, grabbable ability, I don't know what the word is for that, to implement these more positive things in my life. Okay? And it wasn't easy, but I did it because I knew that if I wanted to live a happy life and find peace, because I was fucking sick of just surviving, I needed to cut out everything in my life that wasn't helping me. I needed to have self-love, self-respect, and I needed to be responsible for my own destiny. They say make a plan or become part of someone else's. Now me, I can't do one day's work for another motherfucker. I can't stand working for another motherfucker. I sit there, I remember once I was working them. When was it? For example, I was working at this florist, once. Because I like trees and I like plants and I like flowers and shit. But I was working for this florist, and he kept, backbiting at me and telling me what to do in a real rude manner. And I was sitting there cutting these flowers. I'm like, fuck this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I can't work for someone else because I don't like feeling like I'm overstood. I don't like feeling like I'm feeding a system. I'm serving a conglomerate demonic entity, all in the name of a false reality and society we call a democracy, which is really a fucking slavery, international slavery encampment known as the First World Governments. That are demonic and satanic and do unspeakable things to the most innocent and beautiful and broken people. And I'm so sick of it. Anyway, back to my point. Okay, so you cut out all the shit that doesn't serve you one by one. This is a process, okay? It's not going to use one like that. Bitch. It's not going to work like that. You have to work at it. So you have to cut out all the shit that no longer serves your highest purpose. You have to then replace it with something that's positive for yourself. Now, if it's a person, it doesn't have to be people. You know? I mean, it can be people. Connection is important. I replaced all the people who were trying to fuck my life up, that were friends to me, so-called friends, frenemies, with people in sobriety. You know? People that didn't want to hurt me. People that do 12-step fellowship meetings. You know? And that's what worked for me in order for me to stop using drugs. And then I had a lot of unresolved trauma and resentment towards society, people, government agencies, police, all that stuff. And I had to work through that stuff. I had a lot of resentments towards an ex that tried to frame me in this process. She assisted heavily in trying to frame me. I have friends that tried to frame me and try to kill me. Multiple times. And I was extremely bitter, extremely angry, but I wasn't hateful. It's not. I don't resonate with hate. I don't resonate with revenge. I was just withdrawn, and I was a hermit. You know? I had a very long dark night of the soul, if you know what that is. A very long one. Until I learned to trust in the process and the universe and let go. And the way I learned to do that, okay, so like I said, I'll reinforce it again because this is the most important thing. Cut out everything that doesn't serve your highest purpose. Replace those things with things that serve your highest purpose. You know the things you want, they're generally not what you fucking need. The things you need, they're the things you should implement in your fucking life. Now, the second thing I realized is I was extremely traumatized. I couldn't walk down the street and not think I was seeing someone trying to gang stalk me when they weren't. Okay? I put every person in my life in the same box. Everyone's gang stalking me because I couldn't differentiate my thoughts and my reality anymore, even though because they're so interconnected. And for so long I was running from fucking government. I was running from government. Not because of anything I'd done, but because they were trying to frame me and they were gang stalking me at extremely fucking full-on levels. Okay? And so I realized that I needed to start to deal with this trauma. So once again, use everything within your hand's length, or you dispose. I hate the word dispose. And I firstly went and saw a trauma counsellor. Yeah? Now if you're an Australian, luckily we have Medicare. You can get a mental health care plan from your doctor. Your doctor can then find you a counsellor who's a psychologist, and you can get 6 sessions with a psychologist for free under the Medicare. Yeah, you can actually make it 12 sessions or 10 or 12 sessions if you go back to your doctor and get them to extend it after the first 6. Now, that's what I did. Yeah, and I started unpacking all of the traumas and going through. They say you shouldn't force someone to relive a trauma. That's bullshit. You shouldn't re-traumatize the person by putting them in situations that create that trauma again. Very true. But for the person, I utilize the thing called shadow work. And shadow work is where you go into yourself. You sit and you close your eyes and you go into yourself and you imagine interacting with the person that you're resentful or you're in fear of or you're traumatized by. Okay? And you have a conversation, and this conversation is a back and forth conversation using your own mind that has you speak your fears or your hurt or your trauma, and it has your mind feed you back an answer. Feed you back the answers. Because what you're doing is you're stopping the trauma from fragmenting your subconscious, and you're re-assimilating your subconscious memory back into your conscious by working out the trauma, by facing it eternally. cave, and I did this. I did this for a long period of time, you know, and I thought it'd be a lot harder than it was, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be. There's lots of times where I would finish my
Good morning, everyone. It's been a while since I've been on here, but I've been in the fight with you. I know many of you out there have your own battles that you're fighting. Stick with it, because we're going to see a new earth and a new heavens. And what we see here will be no more. What you see in the physical world, know that there is a spiritual world where a battle is being fought as well. I just wanted to show you what I picked this morning on my walk. It's called fireweed. Fireweed. Beautiful. Can you imagine calling this a weed? Something as beautiful as this? They named it a weed. You see? That's the mentality that has been here on this planet. But it is not a weed. It is not a weed. It's a beautiful flower. And many of you out there have been like the fireweed and the dandelion. You've been called weeds. And you are not weeds. You are not weeds at all. You see, children, we had a creator that was very brilliant, but lacked common sense. And also loved the devil. In the heavens, where the devil came from, and the fallen angels, all of that, we know that story. There was no correction. The Creator didn't have the sense to draw lines and say, no, no, you will not behave that way. Because in her house, selfish beings that she had created, selfish and evil. And they just kept taking more and more and more and more, and became monsters. And that's what we see here, manifesting on the earth today. We see men and women with demons in their bodies. They're not beings that were ever meant to be. They're hybrid freaks. And life will not sustain them anymore. But there are some out there who did not choose them. You are the ones that were called weeds. Yes. The unchosen.
Чё на проходе встал? Заходи давай.
But you are not weeds.
Не, вся эта движуха мне даром не
And
сдалась.
you
Жить
have
охота.
been chosen.
У других поспрашивай. Нормально.
By me.
Ко мне один из этих дебилов сам пришел извиняться.
Because I
Второго
love
подстрелили. Может, это ты и был?
my children who are pure,
Да захерачил я
who
его.
have integrity to stand up for themselves
А ты чё, особо умный, что ли?
and say no to
В
evil.
Таркове таким лохам второго шанса не дают. Запомни это и лучше не косячь по пустякам. Это да. Маршрут тебе мои пацаны подскажут. А вот контакт миротворца
What
уже
you
никто,
knew
кроме
or
меня, не
thought you knew
даст.
about heaven is no more.
Ага. Связан, как и все они.
It's no more.
На словах за мир во всем мире, а по факту
It has
снарягу
been taken
европейскую
down.
сливает в крысу.
Taken apart.
И интересы свои закрывает. Так что ты с ним не расслабляйся. Ага. Но с кем попало в говно не полезет.
What I wanted to do today was
Пока что
give
он
my
готов с
children
тобой
a
только
message of hope.
поторговать, не больше. Может быть, позже сможешь через меня договориться о нормальном сотрудничестве.
And that is what I want you to know, you who are out there, my beloved children. We will build a new earth, and we will have community and family, and you will no more feel like you don't belong. So, remember this. And remember, there is someone here for you that has paid the price many times over. And I live. I live. Thank you for listening, my children out there. Be at peace. And know that power is here for you. Our struggles are not over yet. But we've reached the top of the hill, and now we're coming down. Remember that. See you later.
But after a certain point, these nanotechnologies just started becoming the standard operating procedure for targeting people. Before that was standard operating procedure, it was weaponized parasites, pesticides, and herbicides. And it still is. They layer that, weaponized parasites and pesticides and herbicides. And what I mean by weaponized parasites is they would lab create these ticks and mosquitoes and fleas to carry various super deadly diseases or bacteria, really. Or what is that called? They're like phages. It's like pieces of bacteria that would get in people. Basically what anthrax is and stuff like that. They say anthrax is a virus. I don't want to get into the debate of that. But basically it's toxins. And after, 2000 and something, it was pretty much everybody was being attacked with 2011, something like that, was being attacked with nanotechnologies to interface with directed energy weapons because they were trying to bring this bigger system to the masses. And that's why all of a sudden, people that would have been just surveilled for their lives and not really known that they were actively being targeted, that's how they became actively targeted, is they needed all these data ledgers, which is what we were talking about right at the beginning of the call. They needed all these data ledgers for developing the nanotechnology and directed energy weapons. So all of a sudden, it was like, if you had a third cousin that sneezed on some government official 50 years ago, you were targeted. Like a lot of you people here have no idea how you got targeted. But it's usually from some bullshit like that, excuse my language. It's from somebody a long time ago in your family, or maybe even you had a run-in with somebody. It's as simple as that. It's very, it does happen where it's random, but that's very, 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 very rare. It's usually some sort of run-in with one of these people that are connected. For me, it was my whole family was marked for various reasons I've gone over, I'm not going to go over right now. And I was just another person on that list. And then another person said, hey, this guy would be good for neuroweapons human trafficking, be a good test subject or whatever, because he was looking for a paycheck. And he was looking for access to a group of criminals, outlaw bikers, right? And so my name was already on the list. This guy said, hey, this guy would be another, he told me this, by the way, I'm not guessing. And he didn't tell it to me straight up, but he pretty much did. He spook talked it, you know. And whammo, because he wanted me to know, you know, he had ruined my life. But I was already on the list. He didn't know that my family, we had already been on the list since I was like 2 years old. So anyways, that's how all this came to be. I'm sorry for ranting. But you got listed. Pretty much all of you are, oh, not all of you, pretty much all of you, though, are experiencing this so that they can further develop neuroweapons, nanotechnologies, directed energy weapons, that whole confluence of things that all the universities are helping to build, willfully or not, to roll out to the general public. That's already rolled out to the general public. That's what the COVID stuff was about. I mean, they said that. They said this is, there will be a future where surveillance is under your skin. They said this stuff openly. There will be a future where, I can't remember all the quotes now, it's been years, but all that WEF Klaus Schwab stuff. God, he said, he talked so much, and Yuval Harari, he talks so much. And if you just listen to them and think about nanotechnology, what's in the chemtrails, and then think about your own experience with directed energy weapons, it's pretty obvious, right? This is why it's happening. Why was I targeted? Well, it's because you had a run-in with somebody either a long time ago or recently, and they needed you for data ledger sets. And because of this run-in, you were listed, and because of this emerging technologies, you were tortured, and you might potentially, if things don't change, or if you don't take the right steps, or if fate would have it, you'll die from it. And that's not me exaggerating the situation. I think I'm actually understating the situation a little bit, because I don't want to freak people out here. But this is truly human trafficking. And to any human trafficked person throughout any time in history, the odds of death are always far, far greater than the people going through that would believe. Whether that's chattel slavery or the diamond mines of today in South Africa and all those in Congo and all that, they still have human slavery going on in Africa. It's still going on, chattel slavery. Those people, they can work in a diamond mine, you know, and be enslaved that way, or they can be organ trafficked, right? Once someone's got control over you, right, if you don't take the right steps, God willing, then your death can happen, which, I mean, this is no different. If you eat the wrong foods at the wrong times, have the right heart the right type of heart disease, they can cause a fatal heart attack. They can cause a fatal stroke. That's only if the preconditions are met and the directed energy weapons access them at the right time. Which I know personally of people that have died from that, have ate poisoned food, tried to go to sleep because they felt sick, woke up at 3 a.m. from a heart attack and died, right? It's people I've known personally. So I'm not just guessing this. This is human trafficking. and it really does kill people, and this is why it's happening to you. There are many people who would come and tell you that, this is just about mobbing, or these are just, just narcissistic people, and blah, 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 blah. There's so many things the disinfo people say. And I'm not saying everyone that says that's disinfo, that's not the point. Is that they try to lull you into a false sense of security, okay? Because it seems like you come on a call like this, there's 41 other people here right now. Of them, probably 20 to 30 are legit, and there's probably 10 spooks here, give or take. They'll try to tell you that because of there's this many people experiencing it, and there's spooks that come on here specifically and go, I've been targeted for 40 years, and they sound perfectly fine, right? They want you to think that this can go on in your life indefinitely, to keep you in a state of inaction. I'm saying this because I personally experienced it myself with the spooks and in my life the learned helplessness. But you're in a very dynamic situation, and they are actively killing people for a variety of reasons. Some of the reasons being the actual research itself, the neural weapons, directed energy weapon, nanotech research itself. It legitimately kills people by accident. Some of it is because the groups involved in the human trafficking, they legitimately are filled with pedophile psychopaths, all right? And when you're dealing with pedophile psychopaths, they oftentimes can't control themselves. It just is part of it, right? Just for the same reason soldiers in a war oftentimes can't control themselves and commit crimes against humanity. It's the same sort of idea. In fact, it's almost the same exact idea, right? The people that are running these human trafficking networks are more often than not military themselves. Not always, but more often than not. Usually they're like 4, 8, 12 years, something like that, Air Force, and then 4, 8, 12 years FBI, CIA, ATF, something like that, DHS, and then they picked up the contract for a private security firm they run where they employ other military vets, either from their service or from younger guys, and they do this to people. And a lot of times the network, the younger guys, the people that aren't seasoned killers but have the background of the military, they have no idea what they're getting into until they get into it. Now again, I saw this off people I knew personally and people I met when I was traveling. I saw Israeli spooks crying about this, all right? I saw a Bolivian, literally crying about how they had fucked their lives over by being a part of this neural weapons human trafficking, right? Like to the part where they were actively targeting me, I felt bad for them, right? Because how could you not? You got like a 24, 26-year-old talking about how his life's over and he thinks about killing himself every day.
Tweet, tweet, tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet. Ooh, 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 ooh.
The documented history of programs like COINTELPRO and the Stasi's Zersetzung tactics proves that organized surveillance and community pressure are not just hypothetical fears, but established methods of social control used against those who challenge powerful narratives. When we look at the mechanics of these campaigns, we have to move beyond the surface level events and ask a more uncomfortable question. If these tactics are being deployed against ordinary citizens, what is the fate of the people with real influence, the journalists, activists, and whistleblowers whose words can actually shift the public consciousness?
It's a critical shift in perspective because the logistics of silencing someone scale with their reach. If a single person in a neighborhood is isolated through local rumors, it's a tragedy. But if a public figure is isolated through a coordinated character assassination, it's a structural necessity for the status quo. We have concrete historical blueprints for this. Take the FBI's COINTELPRO, which operated from 1956 to 1971. Their explicit mandate, as revealed by the Church Committee, was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize political dissidents. They didn't just watch people like Martin Luther King Jr. or Jean Seberg. They actively tried to dismantle their lives through forged letters, anonymous phone calls, and planting false stories in the press to alienate them from their own communities.
That term neutralize is incredibly chilling because it implies that the target doesn't need to be physically removed if they can be socially or psychologically erased first. It makes me think of the Stasi in East Germany and their practice of Zersetzung, or decomposition. They moved away from overt terror because they realized it made martyrs. Instead, they used a network of up to 500,000 informal collaborators to gaslight people, moving furniture in their homes, puncturing tires, or starting rumors that a person was actually a spy themselves. The goal was to make the person appear mentally unstable so that even if they told the truth, no one would believe them. It's the ultimate preemptive strike against a whistleblower.
Exactly. And the brilliance of Zersingo was that the victim often couldn't prove anything was happening. This creates a feedback loop of trauma where the more a person tries to explain the weird coincidences, the strange cars, the workplace pressure, the sudden social shunning, the more they sound like they're suffering from clinical paranoia. A 2020 study in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health highlighted that people who experience what they call group stalking or organized harassment often score significantly higher on post-traumatic stress scales because the threat is omnipresent yet invisible. When this is applied to someone with influence, it's about making them radioactive. If you can convince the public that a scientist is a fraud or that a journalist is unstable, you don't need to refute their evidence. You've already destroyed their platform.
But we have to be careful here. There's a fine line between identifying a pattern and falling into a conspiracy theory. Not every tragedy is a result of a shadow operation. How do we distinguish between genuine institutional targeting and the unfortunate reality of individual obsession or mental health struggles? In many cases involving celebrities, the threat is from fixated individuals rather than a state actor. Research from the Forensic Science International Journal points out that public figures are at a much higher risk of being stalked by individuals with severe mental illness who feel a personal proximity to them. How does our framework account for that without dismissing the cases where the targeting is actually structural?
That's why the framework has to be based on patterns and incentives, not just the subjective experience of the target. We have to look at the who benefits question. In a typical celebrity stalking case, the stalker is usually a lone individual with a delusional fixation. But in institutional targeting, you see a multi-pronged approach involving digital interference, legal pressure, and financial sabotage. Look at the case of Jean Seberg. The FBI didn't just follow her. They used a memo to plan the planting of a story that her pregnancy was the result of an affair with a Black Panther member. They targeted her specifically because she was a financial supporter of the movement. The intent was to tarnish her image with the general public. When the methods align with a specific political or financial interest, the likelihood of it being a coordinated campaign increases dramatically.
This leads back to the local level, where these tactics are often beta tested on people who don't have a team of lawyers or a public relations firm. The case of Trayvon Martin is a powerful, though different, example of how community-level surveillance and narratives of suspicion can turn a person into a target. George Zimmerman wasn't a state agent, but he was acting within a framework of neighborhood watch culture that encourages profiling and confrontation. When apps like Ring or Nextdoor become the modern version of the neighborhood watch, they can inadvertently create a digital panopticon where suspicious behavior is defined by racial bias rather than actual criminal activity. If a teenager walking home can be targeted and followed based on a narrative of fear, it shows how easily surveillance culture can be weaponized by anyone who thinks they're the enforcer of a community.
That's a vital connection. The Surveillance Technology Oversight Project has documented how these neighborhood apps can erode social trust and facilitate profiling. It's essentially horizontal surveillance. If a community can be conditioned to watch and report their neighbors for minor deviations, that same infrastructure can be co-opted for more targeted harassment. We see this in workplace mobbing too. If an employee tries to blow the whistle on corporate fraud, the company might not fire them immediately. That's a legal risk. Instead, they might use community pressure within the office, isolating the person, giving them impossible tasks, and subtly encouraging coworkers to avoid them. By the time the person leaves, they're so broken that their whistleblowing is seen as the act of a disgruntled, unstable former employee.
It sounds like the goal is often to force the person to self-police or to have a public breakdown that justifies their removal. If you're constantly being monitored or pressured, you eventually start to act in ways that look suspicious to an outsider. This is the baiting or entrapment tactic often cited by people who report organized harassment. They're pushed until they lash out, and then that reaction is used as the evidence that they were the problem all along. It's a very sophisticated way to bury the truth under a mountain of character flaws.
It is. And if we want to build a real framework for investigating this, we have to look at the intersection of various systems. For a high-level target, it's rarely just one thing. It's an IRS audit, followed by a sudden loss of sponsors, followed by a smear campaign in a tabloid, followed by their social media accounts being shadow banned. Individually, these can be explained away. Collectively, they form a pattern of neutralization. We need to ask, what was this person about to reveal? Who had the most to lose from that revelation? And what specific tools, digital, legal, or social, were used to isolate them? We shouldn't automatically believe every report, but we also can't afford the automatic dismissal that has protected these systems for decades.
It seems like the higher someone climbs, the more expensive it becomes to tell the truth. If we don't pay attention to the tactics used at the bottom, the community harassment and the digital interference, we'll never recognize them when they're refined for the top. The truth shouldn't be a death sentence for a person's reputation or sanity. We have to be able to look at these patterns honestly, because if the truth is what they're trying to hide, then the truth is exactly where we need to keep looking. It's the only way to ensure that influence doesn't become a cage for those who choose to speak up.
Ultimately, the existence of historical precedents like COINTELPRO should remove the "could this happen" barrier from the conversation. We know it has happened, and we know the tactics have only become more sophisticated with digital technology. The challenge now is to develop the discernment to see it in real time. Whether it's a neighborhood watch gone wrong or a systematic attempt to silence a whistleblower, the underlying mechanism is the same: the use of fear and isolation to suppress information that threatens a power structure. By taking the reports of everyday people seriously, we start to map the edges of a much larger architecture of control.
That mapping is essential. If we can identify the recurring markers, the sudden isolation, the character assassination, the synchronized pressure, we can build a defense against them. It's about creating a culture where truth tellers aren't left to face these systems alone. When we understand the playbook, we can start to change the game. This isn't about paranoia, it's about a clear-eyed assessment of how power protects itself when it feels threatened by the facts.
And the facts are often right in front of us if we're willing to look past the manufactured noise. Every time a narrative is pushed to discredit someone before their evidence is even heard, we should be asking why. The more we learn about the mechanics of organized harassment, the harder it becomes for those tactics to work in the shadows. Transparency isn't just a goal for the institutions, it's a requirement for our survival as an informed society.
It all comes back to that initial idea that the truth is the ultimate threat to a lie. If systems are spending this much energy to manage and manipulate how we perceive certain people, it's because those people carry something they're afraid of. We owe it to ourselves to look at what's being hidden, rather than just the person who's trying to show it to us. It's a heavy topic, but one that's necessary to ensure that our public discourse remains grounded in reality rather than curated perception.
It's a long road to uncovering these structures, but the history of whistleblowers from Samuel Shaw in 1777 to Daniel Ellsberg in the Pentagon Papers shows that while the retaliation is real, the impact of the truth is often even more powerful. The framework for investigation is just the first step in making sure that next generation of truth tellers has a chance to be heard.
That's a good place to leave it, with a focus on the resilience of the truth despite the systems designed to suppress it. If you found this perspective valuable, share it with someone who values a deeper look into the mechanics of influence and accountability.
This is going to be one of those videos that the government does not want you to hear. So with that being said, Facebook, this is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do with it what you want. I'll say this video is going to bother some of you, and it could cause some alarm and alert in your life, and I'm very sorry for that. Would you not want to know if a train is coming at you and you're standing on the tracks? Well, that's me standing on the side of the tracks telling you, hey, you need to look and pay attention. So please listen to what's about to be presented. I'm going to start off by asking you to dig real deep and ask yourself a question. Do you have any of these problems right here happening randomly or constantly all the time? Yeah, me too. Let me tell you what's been going on. I'm going to point out something that's very dark, and very twisted, very messed up. It's happening to you and your loved ones. I don't care if they're young, I don't care if they're old, and neither do they. It's happening. Over the past several years, I've made many videos about these files right here, known as the Toronto Protocols 666 by Serge Monast, written in 1995. But this is just one of several other files and facts dealing with Project Bluebeam, HAARP frequency towers, and a lot of manipulation that's taking place today, fake alien invasions, and also false raptures that are going to be taking place here shortly that you need to be prepared for. But listen to this. So a lot of you already know about Leave the World Behind and their frequency towers and things like that were used there to drive the people insane. But let me show you this. As you know, the government has been obsessed with setting up for 5G and 6G and all the Gs over the past several years. And all of those Gs are connected via coaxial cables and fiber optic cables that are running underground and under the ocean right now. The same coaxial cables that are in charge of 90% of your internet that you're thinking is coming from space. Those same coaxial cables are connecting these new data centers and all of these things together all over the world. Well, let me point out something to you very important found in these Toronto Protocol 666 files by Serge Monast. Read this, and this was 1995. Think hard about what that means. The third orientation in the fourth step is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces. The waves used at that time will allow supernatural forces to travel through optical cables, light beings, coaxial cables, TV, electrical, and phone lines in order to penetrate to everyone at once through major appliances. Embedded chips will already be in place. The goal of this deals with global satanic ghosts projected all around the world in order to push all populations to the edge of hysteria and madness, to drown them in a wave of suicide, murder, and permanent psychological disorders. So, I need you to listen to something else. Now, for you right-wing, left-wing clingers, let's see how long this stuff has been going on. 1988, let's see what happened. If we go deeper in the process of mind control over the people, we find that the equipment and technology has been used to influence politics in a much more direct fashion. You have that name, the Democratic candidate running against George Bush in 1988 election was targeted with microwave technology in order to impede his public speaking performance, which is probably what's happening to me most of the time. I can't even pronounce stuff. Once the public opinion polls showed he possessed a serious threat to the Bush's election prospects. But let's dig deep. Haven't you noticed? Every time they went up a G, there was a pandemic of some type, whether it was the flu, or another name for the flu, or another name for the flu, or another name for the flu. I hope you're getting this. Pay attention. Watch this. Several examples will demonstrate areas in which progress has been made. The transference of energy from one organism to another, the ability to heal and cause disease to be transmitted over a distance, thus inducing illness and death, suddenly died from no apparent cause. Now this was 1995. Telepathic behavior modification, which includes ability to induce hypnotic states up to a distance of 1,000 kilometers have been reported. Let's look at our John and James characters. Hey, look, let's see what Colonel John Alexander has to say. If it is possible to feed artificial thought into a multigenetic field via satellite, the mind control of the entire planet is now possible. An individual's only resistance would be to constantly question the motivation behind their thoughts and not act upon thoughts which they consider to be outside their own ideological, religious, and moral boundary. Now let's see what James has to say about the situation. James V. McConnell, which has published a 1970s issue of Psychology Today, he said, "The day has come when we can combine sensory deprivation with drug hypnosis and astute manipulation of reward and punishment to gain the almost absolute control over an individual's behavior. It should then be possible to achieve a very rapid and highly effective type of positive brainwashing that would allow us to make dramatic changes in a person's behavior and personality. In case you didn't know, the United States of America is the one behind all of this stuff, all the deception, all of this manipulation, all of this dark stuff that's taking place right now. And they're already attacking other places. Additionally, there has been a long series of bizarre suicides among British computer scientists, all of whom have had some connection to the United States Navy. What have they seen in the ocean? Now we have to get to the even darker stuff. This is for all of you that say, oh, I heard God tell me this. Or they say, oh, I heard my dead relative tell me this. Or all of those things. It's important to test those spirits because the Bible tells you that even Satan will present himself as an angel of light, and the Bible also speaks about familiar spirits that will deceive you. Let me tell you about this happening today though. This part's really twisted. You need to prepare yourself and your family for stuff like this right here. I think this is one of the most messed up parts of all of it, not being able to control what's being in your head. In his book, The Body Electric, Nobel Prize nominee Dr. Robert O. Becker describes a series of experiments conducted in the 1960s. I'm trying to tell you guys, 1940s forward, a lot of mess happened in the background people weren't paying attention to. Let's see what some of those things were. It says Sharp, who personally underwent tests and which is proved he could hear and understand message delivered to him in an echo-free isolation chamber via a pulsed microwave audiogram, which is an analog of the words sound vibration beamed into his brain. Becker then goes on to state such a device has obvious application for covert operations designed to drive a target crazy with unknown voices or deliver undetectable instruments to a programmed assassin. You know those kids that we love so much? Your children, my children, and all those children? How are they going to be able to recognize the difference between those things? You're going to watch them suffer. How about your relatives that are lost in the right left-wing agenda and think that everything is sunshine and rainbows? Yep, they're going to fall right into this trap really quickly. You need to prepare yourself. All hell is breaking loose, and most people are sleeping, looking for peace and security and safety, when the Bible says the very one pushing peace and security and safety is the very one that turns all on the people after a 3.5-year period. Really hope you're paying attention. And if not, maybe this video wakes you up a little bit, because this is only a fraction of things found in this file that I've covered over the past several years. Have fun in La La Land, or wake up to the truth and warn people.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I'm sure you can imagine how difficult of a decision this was for me to decide to speak out publicly, and the support I've received has confirmed to me that I did make the right decision, and of course it was very much needed given the severity of the problem that's sweeping the country right now in terms of gang stalking and Boys to Skull. So I just wanted to take the time to say that. Yeah, I began working at SIS. Actually, I have friends and family members who are military and military intelligence, and through them, I had always heard, job opportunities. I thought about joining the Marines when I was younger, when I was 18. I'm 39 now, so over the years, it was something I had always thought about. And of course, after 9/11, so many jobs were created in the defense industries, homeland security, and what a lot of people don't know about is within private security, domestically within the United States. It's a booming industry. It's one of the fastest growing sectors of our economy, as generally our society is being militarized, and generally that militarization is being privatized. And as a result, what you have is many, many corporations in the United States of America and private companies that are getting a lot of money from investors under the table to begin to set up what I describe as a security apparatus around and within the United States of America. And it is in that context that I furthered the opportunity to work for security industry specialists in Seattle, Washington. They're a private security company that is headquartered in Culver City, California. And through a friend, I heard that SIS was hiring. I heard they were hiring for security specialists. And given my background in education, which is actually anthropology and sociology, most people don't see how those two connect, but by studying human beings, you can really do well within the intelligence industry and within the security industry, because it is all about learning how to deal with and talk to and communicate with, and ultimately, from our perspective, secure human beings. And so it was through friends and family that I learned about the opportunity, and I started off like everybody else as a low-level security guard, minimum wage. I worked my way up through the company over time, and eventually was assigned to executive protection and threat assessment, risk management. And just to tell you a little bit about that, what my official duties was to secure personnel, data, and property of VIPs that our company is hired to protect. So there's a whole lot of training that goes into that, and I became a security specialist for SIS, specializing in executive protection, also risk and threat assessment to our clients. Our clients are the companies or the individuals that we contract out with and provide services for. And it was in that context that I became aware of what I describe as a social engineering program and a research and development program that was being carried out by SIS and our client in Seattle, the Amazon Corporation. And it was through moving up within the SIS hierarchy and working with more and more people as I was assigned to more and more assignments, I became aware of the existence of this program. And then little by little over time, I became aware of the extent of it. And it wasn't long before I realized how horribly out of control it was, how downright evil it was. Once I began to realize that SIS was experimenting on its own employees, my fellow security specialists, I was outraged. I later learned that my company was involved in a larger social engineering program that encompassed the entire city of Seattle. That aspect of the program was experimenting on the homeless population of Seattle, Washington, who were housed in DESC, Downtown Emergency Services Center facilities. And I later learned that they were indeed experimenting with, when I say experimenting, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior modification technology that is frequency-based and directed at a targeted individual to basically control their entire person. And it was by moving up even more that I realized that this experimentation was going on against the general population of Seattle. And then just the average man and woman on the street, upper class, upper class, and even the flat-out rich were having this technology used on them without their knowledge. As more and more information and details of the program were made known to me, I became more and more outraged by it. And I spent a long time, because I had many friends within the security company. A lot of these people are great people. They're very good people. Not everybody involved in SIS is directly involved in experimenting on people. They're not all directly involved in gang stalking. I never was. I never partook in that. But I did partake in training that deals with tactics and protocols that are used normally for surveillance and counter-surveillance, but within that, it is all of the information and the know-how that you need to be able to gain stock, and that is in fact what they are doing. And so over time, I became outraged, and I tried to play my cards right, wait for the right moment. And when I really just couldn't tolerate it anymore, when I found out just how out of control it was, I decided to object to my superiors in person. But within SIS specifically, what happens is they are experimenting on their own employees. So it's a long story, I'll try to get through it quick, but basically people are selected from all over the country. We're talking other cities all over America. They are selected for many different reasons. Often it is because they are isolated, they don't have a lot of money, friends, or family, and they also tend to be people that are highly, highly intelligent. The aspects of this technology that they're interested in improving upon have to do with cognitive processes, processing information, and as a result, they want highly intelligent people to be targets of this program. They also tend to target people who are into what I would call alternative research, commonly called maybe conspiracy theories, people that disagree with the government, people that are into researching things like 9/11. Also, they are interested in people that are interested in technology. I have found a high percentage of targeted individuals to be people who either are interested in or have information on highly advanced technologies, usually having to do with directed energy weapons and frequency weapons, the exact kind of weapons that we're talking about here that are used in voice to skull, and behavior modification, the works. There's many other aspects to the technology. But once these people are selected, they will have the entire gang stalking / voice to skull program run against them. This is detailed in my article. But they will be organized stalks. They will have career sabotage programs run against them to ruin their job. They will have character assassinations campaigns run against them in their neighborhood. They'll be isolated from family and friends as those individuals are turned against them. And they will be isolated slowly over time using the technology itself. As many of the people freak out, understandably, when they at first don't know what it is. Oftentimes, they end up going to psychiatrists and false diagnoses of schizophrenia, manic depression, delusional, paranoid are rendered against this individual. And it turns out that that's a loophole in the law that they are using to take away people's constitutional rights, as once you are deemed mentally unfit to care for yourself, i.e. you're depressed, delusional, paranoid, etc., they use that, the states or the federal government uses that as an excuse to come in and say that they have to care for you. So I would warn all targeted individuals out there, please do not go to psychiatrists and allow them to render a diagnosis against you, because that is a dirty trick they're using to take away the rights of people all over the country. That's a great question. I do not have direct knowledge of that personally in terms of an individual, how they are selected. What I can speak to intelligently, though, is that each individual fits the general profile that I'm describing. So they're highly intelligent, they are able to be isolated by whatever means. They normally have some sort of what I would describe as a free mind. They're people that aren't, part of the crowd, so to speak, in the way that they think. They're outsiders, they're what the government would call dissidents or revolutionaries, or people that may be a problem. Some TIs have said that this kind of profile that all TIs fits is empowered individuals, and I would definitely agree with that. But I cannot speak to how they actually identify an individual person. I think the general profile that I'm describing that fits the targets of this program is something that is generated high up within the program. We're talking at the federal government level. We're talking at the highest levels of this social engineering program, where scientists from all over the country and all over the world, they're looking at someone's genetics, they're looking at someone's cognitive abilities, they're looking at someone's genes, they're looking at someone's DNA, they're looking at people's social situation. They're looking at people's career. I've been very surprised that so many PhDs are actually targets of this program. And they're usually PhDs that have gone against the grain in terms of what academia normally teaches, usually within the fields of science and technology. And the reason for this is because people running the program want to cover up certain technologies and certain aspects of science that it leads through to tremendous breakthroughs. These highest levels of science and technology are the sole purview of classified sectors of our government and military, and as a result, it is not, the opinion is that the American people do not have the right to this information and is in the national security interest of our country to keep it classified. And so that is the answer to your question. What I will do, though, is take this opportunity to distinguish really quickly between the larger phenomenon of TIs, that is usually a person in America that's being targeted by the technology and is being game stalked by members of their community, and the specific program that I am whistleblowing on. The specific program I am whistleblowing on involves the actual abduction of TIs from around America. They're put on a Greyhound bus and they are shipped to Seattle, where they are made homeless. They live in one of the homeless shelters where they are housed and experimented on with voice-to-skull technology, and then they are funneled into SIS to work as low-level security guards, where they are experimented on even more. So that is a specific program, and that's what I detail in my blog and my website. But because I am familiar with that program that utilizes the same tactics of game stalking and the use of this technology against individuals, my knowledge on that program applies to what all TIs are going through. It's the exact same technology, it's the exact same game stalking tactics that are used against them. In terms of numbers, I know that there are right now at least 300 to 400 individuals in downtown Seattle that have been abducted from all over the United States, brought to downtown Seattle, and are being housed in DESC, Downtown Emergency Services Center, homeless shelters, and being experimented on 24/7. The numbers of SIS employees that have been experimented on, to my knowledge, is in the dozens. That's all I have direct knowledge of, though. About 24 to 36. And then nationwide, the estimates in terms of targeted individuals who still maintain some manner of autonomy and freedom and have not been brought to Seattle and enslaved completely by this, the estimates I have heard is going to go from 1 to 2 million at the moment. And we're talking full-blown TIs that get the technology and are being stalked 24/7. Those are the estimates that I can make. The issues discussed are very much in the open within SIS and with some of the liaison contacts that I had with DESC, Amazon, and then also members of the military that are in a civilian capacity. One thing you have to understand is that within the security business, most of the people working there are ex-military and ex-intelligence operatives. And many of them, in fact, are still active intelligence operatives and have simply been reassigned to domestic duty to work with a private security company, specifically for the purposes of carrying out this highly illegal program that's being run against TIs all over America. So, full-blown TIs, what I would call just the voice-to-skull frequency and the organized stalking I've heard is between 1 and 2 million, and that could be completely off. But one of the things I'm concerned about is the technology as it's being researched and developed in Seattle utilizes emotion manipulation and behavior manipulation without the game stalking and without the voice-to-skull aspects. And so this use of the technology can be done very covertly to the point where the person it's being used against will not know that this technology is being used against them. And that is one of my main concerns and one of the reasons why I want to bring more light to this technology and to this issue, because this technology could potentially be being used against tens to hundreds of millions of Americans every day. I mentioned in some of my podcasts how there are field events where they will not direct this technology at an individual, but create a general field of frequency in a geographical area so that everybody that within that geographical area is feeling the effects of the technology. It's more of a general application of the technology instead of an individual specific application of the technology. But when you consider that use of it, and the fact that it is used for emotion and thought and behavior modification, then we could potentially be looking at many, many millions of people across the country that are under the influence of the technology today, right now. The area of the geographical areas that I'm familiar with are limited to the size of maybe the downtown area of the city, so that the frequency that's being emitted by the device will have an effect on a geographical location, let's say downtown Seattle. And so what they can do is, within this general field, they can broadcast a frequency that affects human beings within that frequency field and can induce a general mood of, let's say, happiness or sadness, anger, agitation, peacefulness. And in this way, they can have an overall effect in the city. I have seen this done, and it is remarkable how effective it is, because you will walk down the street of Seattle and literally see people all in that mood, all at the same time. They do not know each other. Then you go over a block or two to a different office building, and you walk into the exact same things going on there. It's very, very concerning. So within that, then, that overall bubble or area of frequency, where everybody, let's say, is in a bad mood, they can still inject what would be an individual-specific frequency to the targeted individual themselves. Let's say the homeless person in Seattle that's being experimented on 24 hours a day. So they will be under the influence of the general agitated mood, the bad mood that everybody else is in, and then they can more further be manipulated by the frequency that's being directed solely at them. Absolutely, yes. That is exactly what the people running this program have in mind in terms of application of this particular feature. It is to, or at least it can be used to induce riots, for example, or stop riots. It could be very, very dangerous, and it's a great point you bring up about traffic patterns and auto accidents. I mean, this is messing with the innermost part of human beings, their emotions. And so you can imagine how irresponsible it is to actually manipulate someone into being in a bad mood, manipulate everybody in town into being in a bad mood, and then they get in their cars and they drive around where their own safety and other people's safety is at risk. It's a huge, huge problem, and you can imagine the applications of this. If anyone ever wanted to start a riot, if anyone ever wanted to increase the crime rate, and then, of course, you can use it for the exact same opposite. You can use it to decrease the crime rate by making everyone passive. And that can have various applications as well. If you want people to be passive and not pay attention and not take action, it can be used for that as well. So, yes, the mind is boggled by the possibilities in terms of what this can be used for. Radio frequencies, microwave signals, the entire spectrum of radio frequencies can be used within a certain range to produce all sorts of different effects. So the way it works is a device broadcasts a radio frequency, let's say at an individual, and that radio frequency will hook up with the resonant frequency of the individual's mind or body, or in this case DNA. And what happens is, once the resonant frequency is found in the targeted individual and the broadcast frequency matches up with that resonant frequency, those two frequencies interlock, and they can be thought of as one frequency or one energy. And what happens is, between the broadcast frequency and the individual that's receiving the broadcast frequency, once it's resonating, once they are resonating together, a superhighway of frequency along which information can be sent is created. And so you can think of it just like fiber optic cables that you use to send signals over the internet that connect people to the internet. It's the exact same thing, only a wireless application of that. And so once you've connected the targeted individual with the frequency, and they resonate together, then you have a perfect avenue upon which to send and receive information back and forth. And that's exactly how they manipulate someone's thoughts. They send voices into someone's head. They manipulate their emotions. They manipulate their behavior. And then that's also how they receive back from the individual in real time the vital signs, the emotions, the thoughts, what the person's seeing, what the person's hearing. And then all that information, of course, is rendered on a computer elsewhere via software, and it can be monitored and tracked in real time. It can literally stop your own thoughts from happening and replace them with other thoughts by sending thoughts to your head. And it's so sophisticated that you cannot tell where these thoughts are coming from. There's no way to discern that they're coming from somewhere other than your own mind. So you can imagine how bad this would be for people that don't even realize this technology exists. And they're having these thoughts that are spontaneous because being under the influence of this technology now, kind of having been on both sides of it, I am just amazed at the way it works. And I know that the thoughts that they beam into your head originate from the exact same place in your mind that your own natural thoughts originate from. So if I didn't know I was technology, I would have no idea that anyone was influencing my thoughts at all. And that's exactly what it can be used for. It can be used to sway people in terms of their opinion, to make them go along with a certain agenda. It can be used to turn groups of people or individuals against each other for whatever purpose. And actually, this exact same technology can be used to not only influence the thoughts of someone, but also the voice box of someone. And it came to mind because you mentioned a politician. I heard that they actually used this on George Bush Jr. once, George W. Bush, when he was giving a speech because he could not remember his lines.
I have sent you a comprehensive energy plan to devastate communities, kill wildlife, and burn away millions of acres of treasured forests. Abad save lives.
This is the type of thing that can be used to give a politician the words that they need to say.
I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
So that they will come across and deliver the message in the way someone else wants them to deliver the message. So messing with people's thoughts is really, really concerning. It is so advanced now that they can do it without people even realizing it's being done. And the thing that shocks me about it is it's not being done, in a secret military base somewhere. It's not being done in a controlled environment where people are being kept safe and separate. The test subjects are kept separate from the general public so that nobody gets hurt. The entire city of Seattle has been turned into a massive proving ground for this technology. And it's being done right out in the streets. It's being used against people that are driving. It's being used against people that are trying to live in a city environment with the congestion and all the other people around that you have in that environment. And so the potential for accidents and things to get out of control, for people to get seriously hurt and indeed be killed by this is real, and it's happening all the time. And I think it just shows just how not only out of control this program is, but how completely unchecked the research and development aspect of our national security structure has become. They are completely immune to any oversight, to any consequences, to anything they're doing. And I just could not believe that this research and development part of this program was so advanced, and it was so widespread, and it was so out in the open in places like Seattle. And I encourage anyone that's in Seattle, please do go there, or that's near Seattle, take a trip there and spend a week, on vacation. If you got the money to do it, I would recommend it. And visit EESC and visit SIS, 1415 Western Avenue, Seattle, Washington. Visit Amazon. Visit the Apollo, Nessie, Bigfoot, Cricket buildings. Visit these places and begin to look around and observe, especially if you're a TI that knows the symptoms of the technology because you're an expert in it because it's being used on you. You know just as much as I do, but maybe not the version that I'm aware of being used in Seattle, but you're getting a version of it, so you know what to look for. Go there and watch the homeless people. Watch their behavior. Look at their teeth as as all the people have one of the effects, I'm sorry to say, the TIs out there is this technology will actually radiate the teeth right out of your mouth prematurely. And I know in Seattle and elsewhere, people are in their 30s, you know, they brush and floss every single day, that are having their teeth just fall out, sometimes whole. They're swallowing them in their sleep, they're choking on them. I mean, this has devastating effects on the physiology of the human being. But go down there and look. The signs are everywhere. You will be fascinated and your mind will be blown at just how out in the open it is. But I'm sorry, in terms of other places, I am aware of Aurora, Colorado. When I decided to blow the whistle and this technology was turned against me, a massive organized stalking effort was launched against me. And due to my training, I recognize the tactics that are used by these individuals, and it is high up. There is a military intelligence aspect of it, and I won't go into that any further, other than to say that the people who are after me, who are monitoring me, are very, very good at what they do. They're the best in the world, and it's one of the things that has kept me so busy, and I've been so unable to really tend to anything else in my life. Even getting the word out is because I'm fending these people off and fighting back against them 24 hours a day. But I eventually ended up in Aurora, Colorado, right next to the Buckley Air Force Base. And it turns out that this town as well is a major hub for this social engineering program. Aurora, Colorado is a town that has a large percentage of military personnel that live here. The adjacent base, also intelligence, families live here as well. When they're signed overseas, this is where they would live when they're back on the home front domestically. And you can tell that this technology is being used on the people of Aurora, Colorado, many of whom serve in the military. And as I mentioned before, it's not only the general population of Seattle, the homeless, and TIs, but this technology is being used against military families, people who proudly and bravely serve their country and sacrifice everything so that you and I can be free, or at least we were able to be free before this technology started being used against us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's here as well, and there are some other cities. It seems to be adjacent to military bases. I've heard this from a lot of people, and I've noticed it as well. If you have a massive Air Force base near you, Navy as well on the coast, there's a good chance that some aspects of this program are being run at the adjacent military base and is being used on the towns and the people around that base. And I was not aware either just how widespread the security industry was in terms of its numbers and in terms of its power within the United States of America. You're absolutely correct. And it's a great point you make. 1 million personnel, just think of that in terms of standing armies. Look up some of the numbers on active military personnel in countries like Russia and China and the United States, the European Union, and you'll start to understand just how many, 1 million people are, and what could be done with that type of manpower in a situation like this domestically. So one of the things I think that is an advantage of the security industry, number one, it's private. So if you were going to roll out an army of gang stalkers across the United States to mess with people, to track people, to surveil people, to follow people, and to make their lives a general hell to live in, then you would have to do it covertly. You would have to do it in a way that is not noticeable to the rest of society. And in fact, the tactics that are used by private security companies and gang stalkers at large are specifically designed to avoid detection, not from the targeted individual, but to avoid detection from the general public. And so it's a very interesting surveillance situation. It fits right into those surveillance situations where they want the targeted individual to know that they're following them. And so in a normal surveillance situation, you do not want the person to follow to know that you're following them. They actually want the TI to know that you're following because it has the maximum psychological impact. While at the same time, they need to do it in a way that your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, and your family do not know that they are doing this to you, because the entire point of the program is to convince everybody else that the TI is crazy. So they need to surveil you and gang stalk you in such a way that other people don't notice that they're doing it. And so what happens is I was actually with a friend and we were driving from Seattle, and I decided to leave. It was one of the last friends that I was able to have before this massive organized stalking campaign completely destroyed my life as well. And now I'm completely isolated as well. But I was driving with a friend, and we were being followed by people, obviously gang stalkers and military intelligence in my case. But they drive in regular vehicles. They're in modern trucks, SUVs, sedans, every kind of car. Many of them are Toyota or Chevys. And if you're being, I think a lot of TIs have noticed this as well. Chevy seems to have some kind of a deal with these security companies. And I know, for example, my security company purchases most of their vehicles from a particular car company. So these are some of the things I've noticed. But we're being followed by these people, and what they will do is the otherwise unmarked car will have military stickers on it. They'll have license plates that say Air Force. They'll have stickers that say Marine Corps or Army. And generally the personnel as well, for the general description, a lot of them have tattoos. A lot of them are young. A lot of them appear to be, very young, maybe a military type of a look, only with kind of a gangster type of vibe to it. And I think that's for the purposes of intimidation. And I know that is one of the psychological aspects of what I learned at SIS in terms of gang stalking. Is the image you're projecting is very important. It is scientifically planned down to the last detail to have a very specific psychological effect on the target. But anyway, we're driving, and we see all these cars around us, and they all have military, Marine Corps, Air Force, and my friend said, is that the Air Force following us? Is that the Marine Corps following us? Are these people, military? And it's a very good question. They are trying to give that impression that who's following is active military. And of course, that's not the case at all. They are private security contractors, or they are at least intelligence operatives that are operating domestically under the cover of being a private security contractor. And the reason they put those stickers there is to give the impression they're military. And so what you have a lot of times, the way they get license plates that say Air Force, very commonly they are former Air Force. The way they get some of these insignias on their car, they are former Marines, and they are now retired. And after active duty, a lot of them need jobs, and they are being hired by the thousands each and every day to staff private security companies all over the country. And private security companies and private investigators, what they do is they investigate, they surveil, they follow, and they carry out covert intelligence and investigative operations domestically in a way that can be protected. It's the perfect way to carry out gang stalking operations against TIs. And the number one rule in intelligence work and security work in terms of at least people that are going to be surveilling the public is to remain undetected. And so in terms of a profile, they go out of their way to hire people of diverse ethnic background, each gender, all age ranges, more or less. There's obviously limitations if you're too old to be able to follow people on foot. But I've noticed a lot of the mobile details, a lot of the mobile assignments will be carried out by the more elderly private security contractors, because they can't be operating in the city, for example, on foot, walking on hills and so forth. People with disabilities as well cannot do that, so they'll be mobile units. Static and mobile units are the two basic units we have within private security, and then they're assigned to different assignments. But yeah, as far as the profile, they are ex-military, they are ex-intelligence. Many people, like myself, have no ties to that, but they start off low in the company as a security guard, maybe executive protection, maybe risk threat assessments, maybe they have an IT background, so they get in that way. And then they're trained little by little to be led into the gang stalking, kind of the covert aspect of the company, which is involved in the social engineering program domestically to target TIs. And so what you have is, in terms of a street gang stalker, the kind of people that will have constant contact with the TI on a regular basis for the purposes of being known as gang stalkers to the TI, they will have a certain profile physically. The men will often be very strong, they work out, buff, for lack of a better term. They will have a generally intimidating demeanor, although when you talk to these people, of course, they're completely nice, very, very decent people, most of them. They're doing their job, and I don't think there's any way they have to get out of it. Because they have they come forward and they say something that they've been getting stalked as well. And unfortunately, I'm proven that by the way that I'm being targeted and getting stalked, and the technology is being used against me. But this is the general appearance that they give, and so it's to be intimidating. And there's a very fine line between kind of the military intimidation and what you would call a gangster or a thug intimidation. And both aspects, of course, are there on purpose, and gang stalking has been designed specifically to have both aspects there. They want you to believe that your country hates you. They also want you to believe that you're in great danger all the time. The thug, gangster aspect of the vibe that they're giving off is there specifically for that reason. And so you can start to see how psychologically this is going to have an effect on someone very, very quickly. If they're under the impression that the military, their own government, and then a bunch of thugs are following and chasing them around the country, it has a devastating psychological effect. There is a precedent, I would say, that I'm aware of for hiring people that have displayed a certain moral ambiguity concerning certain issues. For example, with certain private company, security companies in the Seattle area, there are a lot of ex-LAPD. In fact, when the Rodney King riots were down, a lot of the scandals that went on in Los Angeles, the LAPD went through several stages of reform. Anybody from LA, of course, will remember this. And the people that were forced out of LAPD ended up almost exclusively going to work with private security companies. So you can imagine the types of characters that ended up in private security companies when the LAPD didn't want to work with. Also, people that had criminal backgrounds are often coveted for gang stalking type of assignments. The reason for this is that they do not mind, obviously, mistreating other people. They have what could be called a criminal mentality. But it's also important to note that despite the unsavory characters that are within this, the entire point of it is a hands-off policy. And this is very, very evil the way they're doing this. I mean, not in any way dependent. I'm making the opposite point. The hands-off policy is in place by private security companies and gang stalkers, the federal government, and everybody else involved in this, specifically to have the excuse and say, we didn't actually physically harm this person. We never struck them, we never shot them, we never hit them, we never did any physical harm to them. So everything that's done by this program is meant to have a psychological effect, and the psychological effect is meant to complement the effect that the technology is having on the individual, so that they are brought to a place in their life where they're isolated, they're broke, they're unemployed, they have no family, they have no friends, and nobody in the general public can track or trace anything that's being done to them because the technology is remote and it's wireless, and there's usually no physical sign left on the individual that anything is being done to them. And the interaction with gang stalkers within the community, there is no physical evidence that any gang stalking ever went on. They are specifically instructed, do not slash anyone's tires, don't, vandalize their house. That is not the point of the program. The point of the program is to have maximum psychological effect and leave the minimal amount of evidence. And so you can see how this hands-off policy, and this is a standard term that's used within the private security industry in terms of what security guards and security personnel are supposed to do in terms of a threat. You're supposed to maintain a hands-off policy at all costs until you absolutely must intervene physically or with use of force. And so that's kind of an industry term that's been adopted by gang stalkers as a hands-off policy against the TI, so that when that person ends up in a hospital or ends up physically deteriorated, they can't turn around and blame the gang stalkers because they were never quote-unquote touched or physically harmed by them, even though all of the harm that's done to TIs is done by the gang stalkers, it's done by the federal government that endorses this program, and it's done by the technology the technology and the federal government is liable and responsible 100% for everything that's been done to the TI. Nobody advertises, on Craigslist that we're hiring you to harass and torture people. It's just not done. And I can speak personally for myself, and I can speak personally for the people I work with at SIS, that when you do first find out what's going on, you are disgusted by it. You cannot believe that this is what's going on. There is also a very quick, almost a peer pressure induced acceptance of it that causes you to say, this is pretty cool. And I'm just being flat out honest here about the psychology that's going on within these people's minds. It's pretty cool. We're part of the group. We're part of the massive army of people that is going to be okay no matter what, because we're on the right side of this, because we're the people with all the power. We're the people that with ties to the intelligence agencies. We're the people with ties to the government. We're the people that are going to be okay no matter what, because we are willing to violate the law and get away with whatever we want to get away with. And our superiors and our bosses are as well. So as long as we make them happy and we do our job, we're going to have a pretty good life. And I can tell you that this is exactly what is done to people almost immediately upon the revealing of what is really going on. They are offered a series of incentives. They're offered, first of all, acceptance into the group. They're offered acceptance into what will be the future of America, that you will be set, you and your girlfriend, or if you're married, you and your wife, your husband, your children are going to be taken care of. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to have brand new cars every couple of years. Your kids are going to go to the best schools. And you are going to be connected, for lack of a better term. And at this point, it really does take on almost an organized crime feel to it, because what you're dealing with are people that are pleasing their boss in order to do something that is absolutely illegal. They're monitoring and harassing and torturing and sometimes leading to the death of American citizens. They're violating their civil rights. They're violating their human rights. They're violating basic human decency. This is horrible stuff that's being done to people. And so you have to understand the psychological aspect that goes into convincing gang stalkers and people that are part of the program to do what they're doing. It is a good, in fact, the psychological operation that is run against gang stalkers themselves and people that participate in the program is just as advanced, if not more so, than the psychological program that is run against TIs. It absolutely is. And so what we have is this very intense psychological program that's run. In fact, one of the things that I'm not sure people are aware of, but I'm trying to cover this on my site because I have direct knowledge of it, hive mind, voice to skull, emotion manipulation behavior, modification technology is being used against the gang stalkers themselves, against people in the program. And it is being used to assist them in doing their job, specifically to take away their conscience, specifically to take away their empathy and their sympathy for the individual, for the targeted individual, so that they don't feel bad, so that they don't feel guilty about what they're doing. They are many times intelligence agents and soldiers are trained to get the empathy and the sympathy out of their system, because you're going to be asked to kill someone for us. You're going to have to go on the battlefield and shoot someone, and you're going to shoot them just because we tell you to shoot them. And so a lot of the stuff that goes on in basic training in terms of training intelligence operatives is designed specifically to make sure that people will pull the trigger when they need to. And stuff like human decency and love and compassion and empathy and sympathy and caring for your fellow human being does not enter into the decision-making process. And so the exact same thing is done within the program, within the Voice to Skull gang stalking program. And it is done not only by peer pressure and direct training, it is also handled by the technology that can manipulate the people's emotions to turn off empathy and sympathy and love and care and compassion, and to turn on what I call some mercenary hired gunman mentality. And the reward for going along with this is you get to be part of the social group. Look at the TI and how isolated they are. Look at how horrible their life is. Look at how sad it is. And every time I think about it, I start to choke up. It's so overwhelming. My heart just naturally goes out to these people and I want to help them. But when you're at the game center under the influence of this technology and the influence of the peer pressure and everything else, You don't feel that. And if you do, the technology is going to take it right out of the system. But look at the TI, how isolated they are. You're not going to be isolated like that because you're one of us. These are your people. Look around at all the other game stars. Look around at the military and the intelligence services of the United States of America. Look at the local and state police. Look at the social workers. These are our people. You can date any one of these women that you want. You can date any one of these men that you want. Heck, we'll help you hook up. You can come and party with us and go out to dinner and do all the things that people do together. And that TI can't. That TI can't because of X, Y, and Z. That TI can't because he's on the wrong side of this. You're very, very lucky to be on the right side, and don't you ever do anything and mess it up, because you will end up right where that TI is. You're not going to be one of us anymore. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be gang stalked. You're going to be tortured 24 hours a day by the most horrific technology ever conceived by the mind of man, and you are going to die, grow old, and die alone. And unfortunately, now I'm saying that, I have a self-realization moment. I mean, that's exactly what's happening with me. And I can totally and completely understand that that is a very, very effective strategy to get people to go along with being a game stalker to help cover up this program. The entire point of this social engineering program that has been researched and developed for decades now, the full intent within the program, everything that's planned going forward, the day-to-day attitude of all the people, is that this program is going to be rolled out nationwide, and it will become the norm. Every man, woman, and child in America will be under the influence of this technology. Every man, woman, and child in America will be one decision away from having gang stalkers turned against them. And the people making these decisions, of course, are not answerable to the American people. They were not elected. They did not pass any test to go through any gates of initiations to prove that they're worthy to have this responsibility. They just make the decision, and you're a TI, and that's it. Every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America will be under the influence of this technology. And as you can see, going forward, what's going to happen is a dividing line that's going to be drawn in America. And it's not going to be Democrat or Republican or black, white, rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, religious differences, whatever it is. It's going to be based on who is on the right and the wrong side of this technology, who is on the right and the wrong side of this program. And so if you are not part of this program, there is a very real risk that you are going to become a full-blown, 24/7 targeted individual. And this technology at that point, when it is nationwide, will be used by automated computer, supercomputer software programming that will manipulate the emotions and behavior and the thoughts of everybody in the United States of America. And it can all be done remotely. It's very much like the microchip kind of tracking the New World Order, this entire, control grid that's supposed to be rolled out against the American people someday. And I'm here to tell you that it's already here. There isn't going to come a day where there's troops in the streets and tanks rolling down your neighborhood and riot gear and all this stuff. We might have isolated incidents like that. It might get like that every once in a while, but the true control grid is this technology, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior manipulation technology. And it can all be done remotely. It can be done simply by targeting you with a frequency, locking into the resonant frequency of your DNA, your mind, and in that manner completely track, trace, and control you 24 hours a day. So the dividing line is going to be between people on one side of this technology and people on the other. And so if you are a gang stalker right now, if you're in the private security industry, if you're in the military, intelligence, local state police, community watch groups, what have you, the reason so many people are getting into this, the reason so many people end up on that side of the fence is because it is the only game in town. There is one side, and you're either with us or you're against us. And so going forward, that's exactly what I had to think about when I decided to make this decision. That is exactly what went through my mind, and that's why it took me so long to